We're going to bring to order the Berlin Select Board meeting of August 28th. Open session public meetings are subject to being videotaped. Your image and voice may be recorded. And called it to order at about 7:05. So we are going to defer our minutes because there aren't any for this week. And first thing I have on the agenda then is general public comment.
If I could, just quickly.
Yes.
I am actually on call for work at the moment, and so I might be checking my phones here and there, but hopefully, knock on wood, nothing will pull
So
me away
far,
from the
we've
meeting.
been pretty good on the nights you're on call.
Yes, I know. As we say that, it's going to be.
Yeah. Okay.
None.
Seeing nothing. We'll move on to the hearings, appointments, and presentations, and the continuation of our Earthworks public hearing that was opened on July 24th regarding the application filed by Michelle Bisconi on behalf of Berlin Realty Land Trust for permission to import 2,100 cubic yards of earth material at 231 Sawyer Hill Road. And we're going to continue that hearing.
We are. So we were waiting for sign off from the Conservation Commission. It now, however, sounds that like she has moved her arena out of the wetlands area.
Out of the conservation
Conservation
restriction.
I'm sorry, the
Yep.
conservation restriction area, I misspoke.
Yep.
But I was still needing to confirm from an earthwork standpoint, that the, items, the earth items being imported weren't over 100 yards. So I was hoping that Ms. Bisconi would be here
Yeah.
this evening, but I don't see
Nope.
her.
No.
So we should continue it then to our next select board meeting, and I will reach out to her. But I did attend the Conservation Commission meeting 2 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
and did remind her that we had her scheduled to appear before the select board on the 28th. So I'm not sure where the confusion came in.
Okay.
So the next meeting is September 11th?
Correct.
No, is it?
Yeah, because next Monday is Labor Day.
I have September 25th.
That was,
Is that because you have another meeting before then?
it
Oh,
could
you
be,
need
because
the
it's
20th.
also at the last meeting, she was also trying to see if she could actually just move soil from her own property and not
Right.
actually have to import anything, which would also allow this to be voided. But I have no problem making a motion to postpone this to September 11th, and on the 11th, we can postpone it again if necessary, unless you want us to postpone it further.
I wasn't sure why that was the date on here.
Initially, she was not supposed to appear before Conservation until the 20th, I believe, of September is your next meeting.
Yep.
But I did receive information, so I apologize, I didn't
Well,
communicate
we
this.
can-
I did receive information, I believe it was yesterday or over the weekend, that she has moved it out of the conservation restriction, so I don't believe she needs anything else from Conservation. Would you be able to confirm?
Well, so we're now just waiting for the restoration plan,
Okay.
for her to let us know her plan for restoring the work that she has
Oh,
done in
she's-
the.
There she is.
There
Welcome.
she is.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi,
How are you?
good, how are you?
Good, thank you. We
So-
actually opened the hearing. We were just discussing the matter. I was speaking with Carolyn. I understand you've moved the
Right.
arena. Could you tell us a little bit about your plans?
Yes, the arena will now be located on what is now the outdoor arena, which is not conservation land.
Okay.
And then when it comes to the soil, are you importing anything from outside your land, or you,
We will need soil,
okay,
mostly stone. We have taken stone already.
Mhm.
It comes from Andrews's Quarry in Canton, Mass.
Okay.
Do you know approximately how many yards of stone you'll be importing?
No.
So anything over 100 yards does require that earthworks.
Well, that's why I'm here to get the permit.
right.
So we need to have that quantity in order to issue the permit.
We have nobody can figure that out until they start doing the work. I mean, how do you know that? You don't know that.
You might know a ballpark. I mean, it's not
Sure.
it's not a million cubic yards. It's
No.
probably not 110 cubic yards. And so
Yeah.
if we start getting to the right ballpark,
So-
because some of it's going to be the traffic that's going to be
So
involved.
maybe, there's not gonna be much traffic involved because they come right off of 495 and they come to the first road, which is
Yeah.
Sawyer Hill, and they come halfway up the
Yeah.
way to my barn, which is,
Mhm.
what, maybe 100 feet.
Mhm.
And then there's a driveway where they're gonna go in. The reason we put that driveway is temporary,
Mhm.
but we had to put a driveway there. So the current stone that's already been brought, it's been brought to make the
Mhm.
driveway. We have to have it because cement trucks can't get in to pour the foundation.
Mhm.
It's not a foundation, it's just footings.
Yeah.
It's no foundation, just footings.
Mhm.
But we have to be able to get the cement trucks in.
And so the stones for the cement trucks, and then
And then we're gonna take them out.
okay.
We're gonna remove them because I need the horses to be able to walk across that area to get to the fields where they go every day
And
from the front barn.
so this importation is just a temporary thing. You're importing some more
Well,
stone.
some of it, yeah, but then eventually I'm gonna make an outdoor where we've got where we started to do the indoor, we're gonna do an outdoor. But it'll only be whatever they let me do,
Right.
120, 140 feet long, whatever.
An outdoor
Outdoor
area.
riding rink.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't think you should have a problem with that because across the street made a tennis court last year on conservation land, nobody complained. So, you know,
Do you have a restoration plan?
no.
So, go ahead.
One of the things that we were just discussing is you moved out of the CR area, that's the restricted area, but there's a
Mhm.
restoration plan that you need
We're
to
gonna
put in
go-
place
yeah,
for conservation.
We'll do it.
Yep,
Yeah,
so,
we'll fix it back to what it was. It's gonna be easy.
so you have to come
It was
before,
only grass.
right, so you have to just come before conservation and bring them that plan as was discussed at the last Conservation Commission meeting,
There's
so.
no rush for that. We're not gonna do it till next spring probably. We're doing the indoor first.
Michelle,
Mhm,
I did put a note on the building permit,
mhm.
so I would like some sort of plan in writing so that I can release the building permit.
Oh, all right.
Okay?
Yep. And so conservation has to sign off, as you know, on this permit as well. So once conservation receives that plan, they can sign off and we can take a vote on that permit. So the issue being, they need that information in order to be able to approve our portion as well, because they are one of the parties that has to sign off on the earthworks permit. So I know you're going before them, I believe, again on the 20th of September?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, are you trying to tell me I can't construct I can't dig around what is currently not on conservation land?
Are you importing
No.
at this time?
No.
Okay, when do you plan to do any more
When
importation
we
of
go back
materials?
to restoring what was there.
Okay, so the current arena that you're building right now that's not on the CR land, there's no stone or anything being imported?
Not that I can think of that we need right now, because pretty much the driveway's done, so they're gonna go over that to put in any footings on the other side. And then the front side, they'll come right in with the cement trucks right by what we already have for asphalt.
So the earthworks permit that we're discussing then is going to be for the new outdoor rink, which is going to be after the indoor rink is done.
Yes.
I
I have to have the indoor, or I'll
Yep.
lose half my tenants.
Right.
And if I lose half my tenants, I
Yep.
have to close the farm.
Yep,
So, you know,
Yep.
I'm trying to accommodate,
yep.
Everybody.
yeah. But most importantly, I don't wanna have to close the farm.
Yep.
We
And
understand
the
that.
state doesn't want me to close the farm either,
Sure. No.
because farms are few and far between now, and a lot of them are closing.
Yep.
No, and we're happy to work with you on that. We just need the conservation sign off in order to issue our piece. So if it relates to The outdoor arena, and there's no importation at this time of soil, rocks, any other materials over 100 yards. You would not need that permit for the work that you're
Okay.
currently doing it.
Right.
But you will need it as part of the additional plan that you're talking about. So
Okay.
we will need to plan for that, and I would recommend we do that sooner rather than later. So if you can come up with the restoration plan as Carolyn discussed, and then we can move forward and get you all squared away so that when you're ready to do the outdoor part, we have all of our ducks in a row and we're good to go.
Okay.
Okay? That'd be my recommendation.
So we postpone till the 25th?
I say we postpone, because you're gonna go back to conservation on the 20th, so we can continue this,
Right.
that way we don't have to do another advertised hearing or anything. Why don't we continue it to the 25th of
But
September?
I'm telling you right
Right.
now, we're gonna be working on the indoor, because I have to. I will not have it by winter if I
Right.
Sure, provided you're not importing any types of materials, that's not an issue. Oh, the chair.
Well-
There's a building permit.
Right, so just kind of two things.
Right.
To my knowledge, you don't have a building permit yet.
Yeah.
So just,
But
Just
you
putting
mean I
that
have
up.
to wait till the 20th of September to get a building permit?
yeah.
That's not fair. I'm sorry. That's not fair. It's on not conservation land.
Correct, but the conservation land needs to be, 2 weeks ago, when you applied for the building permit, I put a note saying that we would like a restoration plan in order to approve the building permit. And then I just told you that again a few minutes ago. If you give us a plan in writing, we can have it ahead of time, then we can have it for the meeting on the 20th.
Can't you have an emergency meeting? I mean, I'm
Well,
sorry, but if we wait until September 20th to start construction, it will not be done for this winter. It will not. I will not get the footings in before the ground freezes.
I don't know
So-
that 2 weeks is gonna make that big a
It's not 2
difference.
weeks, it's September 20th.
Well,
Okay, it's a month from now, I'm sorry.
if you get me a restoration plan in writing,
Yeah,
I will poll the commission and see if they will come in for a special meeting,
okay,
okay?
yeah,
That's
okay.
Okay, and then we can, if that restoration plan meets the Conservation
Right.
Commission's approval and they sign off on it, then we can move forward with the building permit and we'll continue to work on this piece of it.
Okay.
Do you want to plan for the 11th just in case and then move it if we have to?
Well, but I don't think our earthworks is, I think
We
she's gonna
don't
be able
need
to start
anything.
that
Yeah,
without
I
the
don't need
earthworks.
the
Okay.
earthworks.
Because the earthworks is for the outdoor stuff.
And I don't
so-
care
Okay.
about that.
Yeah,
Correct.
so we
Alright.
could do that one even a little bit later on. It's making sure
Whatever,
you get
I
the
don't care
permit,
when you
yes.
do that.
Well, I was
Okay.
just trying to save you from having to advertise and notify abutters again by continuing the hearing to the 25th. And that way, we could get it all in order and you'd be ready for when you are going to
can't
do the
close it.
outside work. Otherwise,
She'll
you're gonna
have to
have to do the
advertise.
noticing
Right, so we postpone it
and the
to the 25th.
advertising all over again.
Oh.
So
Yes.
I'm
And-
trying to save you the aggravation of having to do that part of it again.
And if you continue it, you can bring them a more solid number
Correct.
by that point.
Right, and we can also potentially, I mean, I'm gonna keep my motion of postponing it or keeping it open to the 25th, and the 25th we can push it out further, so that again, when you're ready to do the earthwork stuff, we have something, and we can postpone it even a couple months from that point.
We
So we'll
certainly
have-
can.
We'll have at least more stuff in place that makes the next stage easier when you're ready to do the outdoor rink.
Okay.
So you're all good on what is needed in
And I'm not gonna
timeline?
advertise
No.
again.
No, you
Right.
don't have to advertise
Right.
again.
Right,
We're
we're
saving
trying
it for
to
the-
avoid that. We're
Yep.
trying to, help
Okay.
you out, so you don't
Thank
have
you.
to do that again.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So you get your plan to her as soon as you can. She'll poll her commission to see if they can meet prior to the 20th.
Okay,
And then when you're ready to do the stone,
yeah,
come back, give us a number,
Okay.
ish, as Scott said, ish.
Mhm.
And then we'll go from there,
Okay.
okay?
yeah,
All right.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Michelle. Yep.
So motion to,
I was
Are we
motion
doing
to,
9/11 or the
can-
25th?
I was gonna do the 25th,
Sir?
because there's no hard reason. So,
Oh, no.
so we've,
No,
yeah,
we've got a motion
Yep.
for the 25th at 7 o'clock?
that's 7 o'clock,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
yep,
Do you second it?
I do.
Okay. Then we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Great.
And I forgot to do the I was going to move the appointment to after
Ah,
general public comment, but we will do it now.
excellent.
All right.
So next on the agenda, thank you, Chris, for taking that item out of order. We have under new business, a notice of intent to appoint the new administrative assistant to the town administrator. I am pleased to have Dee Green here with us this evening. We had a panel of 5 that did this search. It was Chris Keefe, Sue Tarian, myself, June Poland, and Paul Redman, our treasurer collector. And we interviewed 4 candidates for the position, and Dee was unanimously recommended as the victor, if you will, or the recommended candidate. And so being that she will be working closely with this board, I asked if she would be willing to come and just say hello this evening. She'll be starting the first week of October, but wanted you to have a face to the name. So Dee is here this evening if you would like to say hello and if you have any questions for her.
Oh, you need to come down to the front. Welcome to
Oh,
the
you're being
office.
invited.
Yes.
It also means that you get to get to be on television then too.
So
Say hello to
everyone will know
Berlin.
your face.
That's right, Madam Chairwoman.
Yes.
Through you to the members, I am very excited to come to the town of Berlin and join the team here. Seems like a very good team.
Great.
Berlin.
Yes.
Berlin.
Yes.
like Merlin. It's Berlin.
Yeah,
She
so
says
it's Berlin.
Maybe-
It's one, not 2 syllables, not Berlin. It's Berlin.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I
There's
stand
t-shirts.
corrected.
There's t-shirts floating around. I'm sure we could find one for you.
I think of it as having a U. That helps me. It took me a
Berlin.
while. Berlin.
Okay.
That helped me out
Very
a little
good.
bit. Took me a while to get that one too.
All right.
So Dee is coming to us with a wealth of experience. She currently is the executive assistant to the select board in Oxford. So we are very happy to have her come here as well and welcome. We look forward to working with you and can't wait to have you.
Are Mary and Dee gonna overlap?
They are for about a week.
Right, and so the timing is?
First week of October.
Okay.
So Dee brings pretty
Yep.
extensive experience in this area, and I actually have extensive experience as an assistant to the town administrator as well. So between us, we will make things work.
That's right, we'll conquer it.
Well,
We will take it on.
I'm seeing
Welcome.
lots of good words in your resume. I mean, it talks about Vadar, it talks about the senior work off, it talks about finance, so you're checking all
Yep.
the boxes, so this is goodness.
Thank you. Yes.
Good experience.
In my mind, the first week of October is like 8 months from now, right?
It feels like it, but
I know it
it's
is.
really
It is.
not.
Corner.
I
Yes.
know,
Yes.
that's the crazy part.
Definitely.
So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions from us now that you've had it? I'm Peg, by the way.
Oh, hi, what a pleasure.
Nice to meet you.
Yes.
This is Scott.
Hi, Scott.
So any questions
Pleasure
for
to meet you,
Scott
too.
and I? Since we didn't get a chance to say hey and not scare you away?
I really don't have any questions for you. I asked several questions during the interview process, and they were answered quite thoroughly. I've watched a few meetings. I
Mhm.
think that gave me lots of information.
Yeah. She
Peg,
did.
please don't scare her off now.
No.
Yep.
Good try.
Yeah.
You know if there's anything that
Yeah.
you need, we're all available
Right.
for you
Thank you
once you
very
come
much.
aboard.
I
so.
appreciate that. Thank you.
It's
Thank
a
you.
really good
I'm
group.
sure it's
Yeah.
going to be a great experience.
We're really
On to
looking
new
forward to it.
adventures.
That's right.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to
Well,
it.
Thank you. Me,
Well,
I am
well.
also.
We'll see you a lot.
How similar to the job you've got now is this one?
It's similar in many ways. It's a little different because I'll be supporting the TA as well as the board, but there's a lot of overlap in what I'm doing now.
You have an eclectic board as well?
Eclectic,
Yes.
that's the new word.
Wow.
Eclectic.
Okay.
We don't have cliff notes on who's who, so you're
Right.
gonna have to learn on your,
I have to
on
come
the
up to
fly.
speed.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll help her out, don't worry.
Wow. And you were worried I was
Peter
going to
Hall.
scare her away?
Thank you for showing up this evening, Peter.
I don't scare easy.
Good.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank
Well,
you very
well,
much
thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank you.
Do we need
Thanks
to make
for
a motion?
having
Oh, we need a motion.
I
we need
would
a motion.
make the motion to approve the appointment.
I second it.
And any other things to be said?
No,
All
welcome
right.
aboard.
Then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You're now one of
Thank you.
us.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you
Well,
very
as
much.
of October, you're one of us.
That's
Right,
right. I
October, whatever.
appreciate it.
I can
Thank
have
you
you.
very much. Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you. And you also.
And
Thank
don't
you.
feel like you have to stay. We won't torture you all night long.
Okay.
We'll increase the-
Soon enough, you'll have to stay, so we'll give you a break for now.
Public hearings.
All right. So I think we're on the second page, aren't we?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to have public hearings, change of alcohol license category from beer, wine, malt to all alcohol per the special legislation that was approved July 18th, 2023. Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2023. First, we're going to speak to Deepak Bhagat, manager, Sean Keshav, Keshav Corporation, doing business as the wine cellar at 1 Highland Commons West. You want to?
I just wanted to say that all of the paperwork is in order. I was able to confirm
good.
with Mary today. Received the notices back from the abutters. It was noticed in the newspaper, and everything does appear to be in order for the license. So I would recommend approval. This is actually a change of category, as you mentioned, so it's not per se a new license. It's changing from the beer and wine to the all alcohol. And
Okay.
the folks from the wine cellar are here this evening if you have any questions for them.
And this is a sort of end result of a town meeting vote
Correct.
2 years ago?
Almost 2
Almost
years
2
ago.
years ago?
COVID doesn't slow things down at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Or just the state in general.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, we're slow in government.
Right.
But yep, so we did get that passed.
If I may, there's no change in the square footage of your space because of this. And so, because I like your wine selection, and what is going to shrink to make room for the hard alcohol?
Nothing's gonna swing, it's just a change of product might change a little
Yeah.
bit, that's all. Amount of space we have is just so much we can carry, but
Mhm.
majority of generalized items we'll try to bring it in.
Mhm.
Because we don't have tons of space, so we cannot carry everything, but common stuff we'll have basically.
Make special requests.
Yeah. Definitely have to.
Higher shelves.
Yeah.
Right.
Are you planning on selling nips?
No, if we don't, I'm not big into selling single nips, but if towns allow, or state laws allows, we might plan to sell it as a full sleeve if still possible. If he can't, then I'm totally fine with it too. It's not something that gonna,
Tell them
Yeah.
how Berlin feels
Yes.
about nips.
Yes.
yeah, so.
You're the
I was
spokesperson
gonna say,
here.
I don't know if I'm the spokesperson for hating nips.
Well, maybe
but,
this one's the
but
spokesperson.
there's a general rule where there's not a big fan. I still pick up 5 or 6
Yeah, I'm sure.
every couple of days on my
A lot
dog
of
walk,
towns
never
and-
mind.
yeah, it's-
And I'm not on one of the roads that get as many as some of the other roads in town get, so.
The kind of clientele and family people that come to my store, we are not something that there's nothing I sell by singles anyways.
Right.
Majority is bulk items, and even we don't sell single beers or anything like that, so it's not something I look into, so.
Would
Good.
you make it a condition of the issuance of the permit not to have nips?
That's
We don't
allowed
need
by.
to discuss that.
I wasn't planning on my motion doing
No.
that, no. Because we've not asked other alcohol establishments in the town to do that. And I would just keep an even keel, because I wouldn't want, because Highland Liquors does sell
Nips, and so does
nips,
Dagnos.
and Dagnos, and so I wouldn't make that a condition of one particular permit. If I did, I'd do it
You might
nationwide.
voluntarily do that.
Yeah, I'm not, I don't feel a need to hamstring one. At some point, we might look as a town, if we want to do it, I'd make sure it would happen to all the businesses sort of equally.
Yeah, you'd have to make, I think, a policy across the
Yeah.
board that kicks in with license renewal or
And-
something. to
And I
that
would
effect
wait
that
too,
way.
because there's rumblings that the state is looking for a statewide ban, so I can't see doing something and
Yeah.
having it
Oh, yeah.
change in whenever.
My personal preference is, raise the bottle bill to 25 cents a thing and put it on nips too, and you'd have every teenager in town running out there and picking up nips because you could make enough money at 5 cents each. Is not worth most people's time, but at a quarter each, you might find some people who that makes a difference.
Any other
I
questions?
had one other.
Well,
it's
so
escaping me.
Kristen,
Oh.
there's no like open issues, any
Right.
agreement issues, financial issues that you're aware of that would,
Nothing outstanding
Okay.
with the town in terms of, like you said, financial issues. I'm not aware of any compliance issues. We did do all of the background checks as
Yep.
required through the police department, and everything appears to be good to go.
Okay.
I'll make the motion then to approve the change in category of the liquor license for the wine cellar.
I will second that.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Long time, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the form that
Oh.
does need to be signed so that we can send it into the state.
Okay. Where's my name? Our secret pens.
Secret hidden funds.
Vanishing ink.
No, unfortunately, I signed in red one day, so you know, we have all been supplied now with black pens.
Oh, it's mine. Mine might have been blue.
Well, maybe if it worked.
Here.
There we go.
Oh, I've got another one if you need, okay.
Good.
Alrighty.
There you
Thank you very much. So we will be getting that in to the state this week. That process can take a little bit of time, as you may remember from the last time you applied. I believe they have between 60 and 90 days to turn that around. Sometimes they're on the slower end, sometimes they're on the faster end. So we will certainly get it out right away for you.
Oh, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
The next change of alcohol license category is for William Matthew Senni, manager, Berlin Liquors LLC, doing business as Berlin Liquors at 3 Bassett Road.
Thank you. Through the chair, all of the documentation is in order for this as well. This was a noticed public hearing in the paper. We did receive the return of abutters notices, and all paperwork does appear in order for the license, so I would recommend approval.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board?
Yes, actually, I'm going to recommend that we postpone this for a number of reasons. First of all, being known financial issues with the town from previous payments, and also most recently on cigarette fines from the store down at the Rotary, that there was an initial fine of $1,000, failed to pay with an extension. There was another fine assessed in 2022, second violation of $2,000, which was most recently paid. I have observations in regard to the River Bridge obligations and items that they have failed to do with the town in terms of a bridge, in terms of a walkway, in terms of other items. At one point, the Senni's owned a liquor license and they chose to sell it. So in my opinion, until actions meet words, match words, we should not be approving tonight their request for a liquor license. And if anything, we give them 3 months to come forth with actions that the town can see, and then we can meet to have it.
Through the chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I was just going to say, there are only certain things you can withhold a liquor license for. I don't know that there's any precedence to put it off. And usually it's just having paid taxes, which I believe they're up to date on.
Yes.
Has Boundless Adventures been paid to date?
That's
So
not
that's part of
taxes.
the development agreement, which is
Okay.
not considered taxes in terms of what can be enforced under Chapter 40, Section 57. That has to do specifically with items that the tax collector would collect, which would be betterments for like water, sewer, assessments, taxes. A development agreement would be a local agreement, not anything that's, on a state or, level in that sense that would be regulated by mass general law. So my concern with that would be that I view them as two separate issues, in that there's also been ongoing discussions, as the board is aware, to address the development agreement, and we're hoping to have it ready for I'm calling it winter town meeting now, winter town meeting, so that we can address it. I do also understand that there have been issues with the cigarette fines, and my recommendation is there's a couple of things. There's a independent program called We Care that does a training that you could recommend or ask that be followed. There's also tips training that happens for employees, and I have seen in the past when people are concerned about compliance issues that towns have asked that the tips certification be retaken by all employees. Now, I understand this was a tobacco issue, not a liquor issue. So you're probably looking at more something like the We Care program, but if I understand correctly, it was not a compliance issue. It was more on the end of the fines
Right.
and making
Well,
sure that they were paid.
I mean, there were two instances, one in April. To my knowledge, no additional training was done or provided, and
Okay.
yet it happened again a few months later in September. So it gives me pause to the training and the oversight that is being given to the people who are running the registers there, so.
So I guess the only thing I would say in terms of that is one of the things this board can do to be proactive is to request that there be additional tips training as part of this. It is a change in category, not a brand new license. So they will still continue to have a license at that location. And I cannot speak for the Sennies, but I would think that would be something perhaps they would be amenable to doing if that addresses your concerns.
We need to hear from the Sennies on, I think I'd keep it to at least Mike is the compliance issues, selling to underage folks is a concern both in alcohol and tobacco, and sort of what can be done and what's gonna, because getting your hands on hard
I talked with the
alcohol
health
is worse.
department, and they had recommended, and they were actually going to reach out to us to set up
Is the We Care program, is that,
I'm not sure which of the two programs.
there's a couple of them.
Yeah, Billings,
Brookings?
Bookings. thank
Brookings,
you.
yeah.
He's who I've been dealing with
Okay.
over there, and he's comfortable with where we are. It did happen twice. It happened twice in a relatively short time with an employee that we obviously let go immediately after the second infraction. And we've got everybody alerted to the scenario. We've owned the liquor store for almost a dozen years now, and we've never had an infraction for selling to a minor that I'm aware of. If we were negligent on the cigarettes, I apologize, and if our record, I think, shows we've been very diligent as it relates to not selling to underage people. And a good citizen of the community, the store being a good citizen to the community.
And that you did have a full, if I may, sorry, Sharon.
Sure, go ahead.
You did have a full license at one point and sold that to just beer and wine.
Yes,
I'd like to understand sort of, and now you want it back. And so I'm just trying to understand sort of what made you want to get rid of it in the first place and what makes it sort of important for the business now.
It was a business opportunity, and it had afforded us the down payment on the basically $5 to $6 million water and sewer treatment system that we hadn't budgeted for when we first purchased the property back in 2010. And we needed it as a down payment. 100% of those funds were spent to be able to secure a loan. It was a down payment to secure a loan that we're still paying off today. It was originally almost a $5 million loan, it's now down to 2.2 million. But that was the seed money that created that opportunity for us. It was just a basic business decision. You know, one of the reasons it's taken Riverbridge as long as it has to be completed as a total village is it just took us years to be able to even finance the water and sewer system, no less manage it, which is a bear all unto itself, but we manage it. And as the board's, you know, considering our change in venue over there, it's a business decision. There's a lot going on down at Riverbridge, and a ton of it is very positive, we believe, for the town and most of the people we talk to in the town. We've been good citizens to this community, we believe.
And then for you, Kristen, or if you folks know too, but that these new licenses aren't the same as the old ones. They're not sort of, they're just to these folks. It's not something they can resell on a secondary market.
That's correct. They're tied to location. So
Right.
they're
Good
actually, this license in particular is tied to three, I always get, is it Bassett or Barrett?
Three Bassett.
Thank you. I get that mixed up all the time, the R and the S. It's tied to that location specifically. So it is not transferable. The only thing that can happen is it could be transferable to a different owner at that site, but it cannot be transferred to a different site.
That's correct.
So we, as a town, took this to town meeting like November 8th of 2021. The town voted in favor of it. And then these, both parties have been waiting for a year and a half, almost 2 years.
The special legislation that went through did require it to be site-specific. So
Yes.
that was a vote that the board did take last fall.
Yes.
Right, which I wasn't a fan of at that moment either, because the purpose of getting these is to, my desire for these when it went to both town meeting and we were pushing it before was that I wanted to not have a secondary market where someone can sell a town license for substantial amounts of profit. Just because I thought that's in some respects a town resource that someone else has been able to make significant profit out of, and I just didn't
That
feel.
was in the legislation too, though.
Right, they forced us to change the legislation.
Yes.
The original legislation was going to be, we passed it at town meeting saying we wanted 2 more that we
Right.
could give out in the future. Little did I know at the time we were doing that there were 2 people just, out there waiting for something like that. So they did get snapped up early, and we still don't have then potentially extras we could give to a new business or expand in town.
No, I guess the argument I would make though is you're really safeguarding against it being sold to an off-site
Yep.
business because it is tied to the
Yeah.
location.
Yeah, which at least makes me a little
I mean, yeah.
better.
I hear your concerns about the compliance. I genuinely do. I think that in terms of assisting business and adding, alcohol will obviously increase sales. That does bring a benefit to the town in our ability to assist business. I do understand the development agreement concerns. I just view them as 2 separate issues that we do need to address separately. And we are working on the development agreement piece, and Chris and I have been working quite hard at it.
We actually were working on it today.
We were. So we are trying to move that forward as well, but I do view them independently, not together.
If I could take a slightly different direction than when you were going, Peg, it does mean we actually end up agreeing, because you and I sometimes don't. If it is permissible, I'd almost like to see the training of the employees on, I almost want both for the tobacco stuff, assuming they're gonna get that back at some point, and proactively for the alcohol sales, and have that training happen before we actually issue the upgrade in license.
So may I make a suggestion?
Mm-hmm.
It does take 60 to 90 days to process at the state. We cannot issue that license until it comes back from the state, and you all have to sign that license before it actually gets issued. You could make that contingent upon happening before the actual license is signed and turned over to the business.
It wouldn't be appropriate to have it just be contingent.
Well, that's what
I-
that's what I'm essentially
That's what you're saying.
They have 60 to 90 days in which to complete it, because it's going to take that long to process at the state level anyways.
Right.
I might be more okay with that if, again, I knew that it took another action of our part to do it. I don't want something to happen potentially in the background, that I assume they'll get the training, that as you point out, as a general rule, there's been a lot of things you've been a good citizen about, and that they would in good faith go into this. I just would worry that like it gets completed, we've passed this, and so it doesn't come back to us to I don't know, I'd like to make sure that we're fully aware and cognizant of it.
Right, it doesn't come back in a public
Right.
forum, which I understand what you're saying. It does come back to the board for signature once it's approved by the state. So that is certainly something that I could discuss in a town administrator report. I could make sure that we have copies of that training before you sign it. I don't know if that's helpful to you at all, but.
I think the training is helpful to anyone who takes the training. I don't think that the Sennies would have an issue with that.
No, so where would you be on sort of when we vote on this versus when the training is done? Because I assume, Peg, you would want more done than just the training before you would vote for the license. So
Absolutely.
Sort of why I've left you out of that part of the
Thank
conversation.
you, I appreciate that.
I've tried to see is there a spot where you and I might be able to agree on something and get something done, or
I think
is it
that,
going to be
yes.
something that this gets just postponed until we
I-
dig some more?
I think that what Kristen is suggesting is fine with me.
Chris, can I make a suggestion?
One,
Good.
yes, we're still discussing
You have
amongst ourselves,
Yes,
but
that's
go
fine.
ahead.
So you make a valid point, and Peg makes a valid point, but what's unclear to us, or at least to me, is what rules you have to go by about approving or tabling or not allowing this license. I don't think it's clear to the board what the rules are that you can go by. Is it something minor? Is it something major? Is it certain criteria? And for that reason, I would suggest that you table this for a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever the case may be, in order to find out what you're permitted or not permitted to do to make a basis for your decision.
Through the chair, I could speak to that a bit. In my experience in working with the ABCC over the past almost decade, you typically have to have a flaw in the license, whether it comes back with a quarry issue or it's an incomplete application. I would be concerned about bringing in issues that are not specifically related to the license. I think that this board doesn't regulate tobacco. I hear the concern. I think bringing in that is a little bit of a stretch, but I think that I'm trying to come to a happy medium between both parties here for everybody. My concern would be that needing to have a valid reason for a specific denial relative to alcohol sales, either at the store or a problem with how the license itself was packaged for the board, which I don't see an issue on those two accounts. And I'm not sure that the other issues would be valid reasons to reject the license.
I agree, actually, because I think that you can't just pick and choose. With this particular license, it goes to that address, correct?
Yes, it does.
And the current license does not?
The current license does not.
So this would actually add a little bit more restriction. If you get back to my original intent from a couple of years ago, that would, it would not, they would end up with a license that is stuck to that building, which is decent. My tying into the tobacco is as much again, following a license as much as, and regulatory stuff, which,
Sure.
which this is we're a regulatory body, making sure that people sort of follow the rules.
Mhm.
If I could, through the chair, I think
Paul had a
if
question.
Paul had a question, I'd like to hear what he says as
Yeah,
part of our Board of Health.
Board of Health, I see the ball, hear the ball being bounced back and forth, and, alcohol, tobacco, but isn't there a larger umbrella called management? And anything that falls under that umbrella is part of that operation. And my concern is now, I'm unaware that Matt has been talking to Bill Brookings. He may very well, Bill's been on vacation. I don't know what the status of that is. but after the very first violation, did Riverbridge, did Berlin Liquors reach out to the Tobacco Alliance relative to training, which is publicly available to any business? And I'm looking for a demonstrative path. I mean, I understand the state comes into play, but as a longtime member of this community should have some say, and I don't want to give it up to the state over little wiggly niggly things. I mean, let's cut to the chase. What's the management? Has the management been doing, you know, we talk about the development agreement. How long are we gonna negotiate that development agreement? I thought that was done. And we didn't get what we agreed to initially, and now we're just gonna say, oh, well, okay, we'll move on from that. Doesn't make sense to me as a voter.
Through the chair. I understand the compliance issue, most certainly, and that's why I was attempting to recommend either the We Care or the Tobacco Alliance. I think that's fair. As I said, this board doesn't regulate tobacco, so that is something you'd have to work with the Board of Health on. But the tips piece and the alcohol piece, this board does regulate, so that is something where you do have jurisdiction on the compliance side of it, for sure. So, as for the development agreement, I can only speak to the fact that there has been willingness and open dialogue, and we are working to move forward with that. And I strongly believe that we will reach a resolution that I don't know if everybody will be happy with, but I think it will be fair.
Shouldn't that be bundled together with the license?
I don't think
It
we're
can't
allowed,
be.
I don't think legally we're allowed to bundle that with the
That's why I
license.
suggested
And-
find out what you're permitted to do.
Well,
Well, we
and I
know
think the
that.
answer is, we're not allowed to take development agreements and combine it with a license.
Right.
It's
not a mass
And
general
I was
law
trying to find, because you
sanctioned.
wrote a decent email that outlined what we
Yeah.
are allowed and not allowed
Yep.
to sort of.
That's the actual mass general law on
Good
it.
faith action would go a long way in helping that,
Mm-hmm.
to speak to the obvious.
Yeah, I know enough, because we've had a couple of executive sessions about the development agreement, that progress is being made, and I think we'll end up with something that the Sennies will not be totally happy with, and the town won't be totally, but will allow them to continue on and get to a spot where I think all of us would be in a better spot at the end of it.
And that's exactly what a good agreement is not everyone is completely happy,
But we
head over
reach-
heels.
Right,
Um,
but we reach a happy medium.
Yep.
but you know, it's a give and take.
Yep. It's gonna be up to me to make the motion, isn't it?
I can make the motion.
I would approve the license contingent on staff, all the staff and management being trained on the whatever the liquor side of the universe is. Tips, thank you. Before the license gets released.
So tips retraining before license gets released.
Yes.
Anything else?
I have said my piece.
Okay. Then I will second the motion.
Mhm.
And I guess if there's nothing else to be said, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye. Noes?
Opposed.
Okay.
Here's the same form.
This can go with 2 signatures, right?
Yep. It sure can.
Because I think it would be unfair to
Yeah, I would not
ask
sign, I
Peg
would
to
not
sign
sign it.
something that she is
No.
not.
I
She
voted
is-
no
she
and
is-
will
Oh, I
not
got
sign
it.
the
That's
document.
fine.
Yep.
It's just a majority.
Yep. So
Okay.
Fred gets 7 minutes.
Maybe that bad.
You gotta go real quick, Fred.
Understood you say?
No, something to Carolyn.
Oh. I thought you said you wanted it back.
No,
Thank
no, no.
Thank you.
You wanna
Well,
go
thank
to
you
that
very
seat?
much.
You get the hot seat, Fred.
Hi, Fred.
Hey, you look familiar.
You do too.
All right, I'll make this super short. Did everyone have a chance to review it?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
apologize for that.
I usually do my stuff on the weekend anyway.
Yeah, that's when I do my best work.
Yeah.
So, just a couple of the big things that we were able to start. We got the paving projects underway up there on Highland Street, Randall Road. They were actually putting berm down today. So hopefully within 2 weeks, we can get that road finished up. One bad thing is, I'm sure you've heard, is the RTU in for here. Well, we're supposed to be down right around the time the roof was done. That got pushed back now until September.
October will be here very soon though, remember?
It's like tomorrow.
So
Yeah.
we've been told.
Yeah.
And luckily, there'll be no hot days between here and then. You
Oh,
know,
yeah,
'cause-
of course not. But we were able to finish up replacing the culverts up there on Highland Street prior to the reclamation coming through. So that is actually going along pretty well up there. We did lose one employee. He went over to the town of Westboro. So we're still short a guy now. But we'll chug through it. Through everything that we went through, we still were able to get out. We did 4 days, I think, of hazard trees. A couple of ones were actually within the cemeteries that they were worried about falling on the crematorial building when that came in. I think that's what it's called. And so that one got done. We continue with the roadside mowing. All this rain is just killing us because the grass is continuing to grow. We lost our summer help, Mike Arata. He came in. He's
Off
already
to
gone
school.
back to college.
Yeah.
And he was a big help. So now we're down to just one guy. So we have to supplement all the mowing, the cemeteries, the ball fields, everything like that, with our guys. So it takes away from our stuff, which is why you can see it in the streets. There's brush on the ground. The roadsides aren't kept up with mowing. So we're just trying to balance everything with what we have. And that's about where we are. The test bores were done on the South Street Bridge. So we're just waiting to hear now on the next steps as to when we're going to move forward with it. That was about it. And the roof was done here.
Yeah.
That was for this month. I'm going to save that for next month. The roofing supplies were delivered for here. The only thing we did outside our department was Board of Health. We helped them out with a couple new containers delivered down the transfer station. And we just did some cleanup stuff to help out with the bullet house. Other than that, it's routine, basically.
So I just want to relay a compliment that I heard over the weekend.
That's the wrong response.
Just that Mr. Sheehan really appreciates all that you've been doing as far as the train derailment on Allen Road.
It's been frustrating.
I know, it's probably been frustrating for a lot of people,
Yeah.
including him and yourself and Chief back there.
Yeah, it's,
But wanted to say that he really and Carolyn, actually he mentioned Carolyn too.
Oh,
see,
Just the
you
two.
gonna give me a raise?
I got a
That's
lollipop
right.
in my bag for you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So-
that's good.
If-
Anything else?
If I may,
Questions?
Sorry if I might, and hopefully not steal too many of your questions.
Just three.
I
Oh,
was going
I'm
to ask
done.
during the TA report about Allen Road, but you're here and it was already been brought up. Just where are we at, and share the frustrations with, I don't know, as many people as we can about how railroads don't necessarily respond to small towns.
Oh, well, it starts out with they have no respect for small towns. When I was going home that morning, that's when I first encountered them. They had already offloaded all their equipment on Randall Road. There was like 9 tractor trailers left there in the street for almost a week. When I went by, they had actually had their like bulldozer type equipment already sideways on the road trying to load up the arms that they used to clean the cars up. And they were just turning in the berms. There's over 100 feet of berm that they broke up, pushed away from the roadway. Then they proceeded to drive all the equipment right up West Street, right down Allen Road, instead of taking the time to back their trucks all the way down and offload in one area. So they just had no disregard to anyone's property. The hard part, the people that we had contacts for, they've all been shifted around, so they're no longer in our area. The gentleman I reached out to for the claims department, Ed Barb, he's now out in the Springfield area, and the guy replacing him, Devin, was supposed to be calling me today. I never got a phone. So you hit a lot of dead ends. Every time you think you're making progress, you're starting from the beginning. And it's hard because I know the residents wanted answers, and you just can't get them.
And I believe railroads are, of course, regulated by the feds. Like the state doesn't even really have any say over it. I happen to know just a little bit about this stuff. My mother's been fighting railroads near her house for 25 plus years, and so what their Board of Health in town has gone through on it, because
25 years.
yeah, they've well, I'll tell that story some other day. But whether or not we should start reaching out to Lori Trahan about.
Taking the word.
Oh, sorry.
boy.
See,
Yeah.
was that in your report? I don't remember you saying
No,
that.
we actually just talked
Okay.
about this. So
There was that meeting
we went down
at
there.
4:45.
Well, and I figured I couldn't go to the meeting at 4:45 because
Right.
it wasn't posted as a public meeting, and we
We all
can't have
stood
more than
apart
one.
from each other.
Yeah,
Chris
we
was on
stood
one side, Chris
far
on
apart.
another,
Site
and I was
visits
on
are
another.
exempt from open meeting law as long as you don't discuss or deliberate.
Okay.
Sorry.
I could have
I
gone
should
there,
put that
sorry.
out.
I was thinking of going and just
No,
was
we
worried
all
about open
spread out.
meeting law stuff.
We
But yeah.
did, so if you'd like, I could
Sure.
give a brief overview of
Sure.
the meeting. So we had police, fire, conservation commission, our MEMA rep actually from emergency management, to
Board of
the
Health.
select board.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry?
Board of
Board of
Health.
Health.
Board of Health, yes. I didn't forget you back there. Myself, and I'm sure there were others that I'm potentially forgetting, went down and met with a group of neighbors down on Allen Road, walked the site, actually went out with the folks who are doing the cleanup, looked at the tracks and where they're at. And I think that there's two steps we need to take. One is exactly as you said, reach out to Lori Trahan's office, and I intend to reach out to her chief of staff. Because this is a federal issue and it is very difficult to get the railroad's attention. That is a big challenge. The other is I've started compiling a list of all of the issues that have occurred that the residents have expressed down there. And we're going to put it together, and I'd like to send a letter from our legal counsel to their legal counsel, because this is obviously not the first train derailment that we've had in town. There is some cleanup left over from the last one that needs to be addressed. And, like you said, they're hard to get a hold of, but I think it's worth at least a shot of sending a legal letter and seeing where we can go from there.
Yeah.
Because at some point, there's a lot of town expenses going into this that
Yes.
we need to make sure we get reimbursed for, because I'm trying to find words that I can say on a television channel, but like, it would be disappointing if the town taxpayers had to pay for this cleanup when it wasn't our mistake or our responsibility to do it. But at the end of the day, we do try to make sure, our properties are well taken care of, including the conservation land around there and
Yes.
the water quality of the brooks and other stuff.
And the conservation land is a big concern, obviously, not just for the commission, but for us, for the residents that are down in the area. And, townwide conservation is very important and a huge concern. And there's also some small wetlands issues or small conservation issues that need to be addressed at the other site off of Linden that we're going to ask about too. So we're going to just put it all in there and talk about their lack of communication, because we don't really like finding out on Facebook that there was a train derailment. So we need to have better notification from CSX and better cleanup.
Yep.
That's what we're going to try to work on, a better communications protocol and cleanup process with them.
Yeah, because we know what's going to happen.
Nothing.
Well,
Yeah, it's not if, it's when.
Yeah.
But yeah, right.
Right, I don't remember if it was a police, fire, or highway that I got the email that they were still trying to get the manifesto of what formerly was
Yeah.
dumped.
Yeah, you're not gonna get it.
That like, it's been weeks and we still don't have a formal list of what was dumped. You can look at it to get a sense of what it is.
Yeah,
but-
it's construction material. They put it on the outside of the car, but they don't have the chief explained, they don't have fire chief, they don't have an
Right.
exact manifesto because there was a reason.
Well, I think his thing was, it was the breakdown
Oh.
by, like, the material in the car.
Yeah.
Right,
It's not like, you're hauling, 40,000 gallons of oil.
Right.
They know it's oil. They just know it's construction debris. The best time to get that bill of lading is that day while the incident's happening, because the conductor has to have it.
Right.
And he has to say where all this stuff is in line of the train. We missed that opportunity, so now it's trying to hunt one down.
right.
Is the
We
hard
missed the
part.
opportunity because they didn't tell us the train had derailed. We learned about it on Facebook, so.
Exactly.
Right.
3 quick questions for you.
Ah, I think we're
Because we're a little bit late, so three,
Well-
quick. New hire, are you gonna replace Brandon?
We are. Actually, Kristen and I had talked about it. We don't know which way we're gonna go with it. It
Okay.
would be ideal to keep a guy on the highway, but we've discussed, it's to the point where I would rather have a full-time guy here as custodian, maintenance, whatever, that can change the light bulbs, deal with someone's, a small issue that I have to come in for, because I can't pull one of my guys off a crew and that job shuts down.
Okay.
So ideally, I'd like to keep one, but, it'd be more beneficial for us to have one here.
I know
That
that
can do the other two buildings as
you
well.
had asked me about putting something like this on the agenda.
Yeah, like a senior work-off for,
Well, either that, or I was thinking if Kristen and Fred are gonna be working together to figure something out, then bring that to us when you have that figured out.
Yeah, we talked a little bit with the personnel committee a couple weeks back. Kind of what we're bouncing between is Morris does this building, would be about another, 20 grand, which is about what we were paying for the half custodian, the 19-hour week custodian to do the other two buildings. So what I would almost love is, because Fred is so short-staffed, to give him a full-time person that could do facilities and highway stuff, like you said, the light bulbs, the maintenance, that kind of thing, and just have Morris do the cleaning. They've done a great job with this building, but we are kind of going back and forth, because then, of course, that's a matter of us having to come up with another 20 grand. So that's the challenge that we're dealing with right now. So we need to get back together and further that discussion.
Yeah, because the buildings, they're over 20 years. They're just over 20 years old. And there has been much upkeep.
Right.
And the longer we let it go, the harder it's going to be to keep up with.
Right.
So if we can get ahead of it and just keep things going.
Do you have like a list of what you do maintenance-wise for all the buildings and when you do it?
I did put something together for Brendan when he misbehaved one day. We actually created a cleaning schedule for mainly the other two buildings, because Maura did this. So his extra hours here would have been like extra things. He was supposed to be cleaning light, all the bugs out of light fixtures. Once a month, he was supposed to check for burned out bulbs. It was just stuff that Maura didn't do.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the second story windows in the front foyer. He'd never done it.
But that could be a senior work-off person, like you were saying, I would think, that extra piece of it.
for small things, I mean,
Yeah.
like going over to 1870, which is rarely used, and somebody takes a mop and whizzes around every couple weeks or dusts.
Right.
I mean, that's easy, so.
Yep.
Right. Hazardous trees, as I whiz around town, I still see white pieces of paper on trees, so,
They have started. They actually started last Monday.
okay,
So National Grid, it's they contracted Northern Tree.
okay.
So they're in town. They started down by the Rotary and came up. I believe today or yesterday, or not yesterday, Friday. They might have been around Gates Pond Road area.
I saw them.
495.
Okay.
So I don't know what their actual plan is, if they're just following a route or if they're bumping from tree to tree as their condition is.
Okay.
But they are in.
And then last question, with the people on the roof and the people who were sandblasting the building, I noticed that there was quite a bit of trash floating around the building. Whose responsibility, please say it's not yours, is it to pick up that trash when they're done?
Outside,
Yeah.
I didn't see it, but yeah, if they didn't clean it.
There was a neighbor who came over and picked it all up around the building, so.
Called me.
No.
Because ideally, it would have been it was their.
Well, I know, but who? Was it the people on the roof, or was it the people sandblasting? That's the question, so.
I bet you most likely it could have been the people on the roof, because their dumpster was out back and it had overflowed.
Okay,
And right now, they still have one of those bags you can get from Home Depot, like the portable dumpsters.
Right.
They're loaded.
I just wanna make sure that if they're causing the trash, they pick up the trash, and that does not fall to you or your staff.
Is
Or-
it still
Or a
being
neighbor.
tossed
No,
out?
no, it's
Oh,
gone.
all right, because I wouldn't doubt it, that it might still be blown out of their dumpster bag.
Yeah, okay. All right, those are my three.
Because that was gonna be a question. I still haven't gotten an invoice to pay for any of that. I don't know if they submitted it to
For the,
the roof work.
yes, received.
All right.
I received that, but they submitted a 95% invoice, because the 5% retention would be held back until the inspections went through. So, since it was the article that I did put it through, I'll get you a copy.
Okay. Yeah, we were just up there recently with Viking working on an AC unit, and it came off phenomenal. It looks very well. There was no standing water where we used to have it. So they did do the pitch with the insulation. But they still have, like I said, trash up there. There's extra material that
They
hopefully they
won't
can
get
get
their,
rid
they won't get the rest of their money until all of that is cleaned up.
of. Exactly.
Awesome.
That's it.
All
That's
right.
it.
The,
That's all.
I think
sorry,
that was four
the,
questions.
That
the
was
trees you're
no,
taking down are
three.
not the trees that National Grid has done. You're doing it, you have additional lists that you're getting.
Yeah, so we're still working off lists that we've created
Yep.
a while ago.
Yep.
All the ones that the grid had taken down are the ones that they had came in and marked and had the tree hearing for. And there have only been 2 residents in town that requested the wood.
Mhm.
One of them can take it, the log truck. The other person couldn't because they weren't gonna back across the driveway, because it just wasn't designed for it.
Right.
But any resident in town that can take a log load of wood mixed, or even wood chips, they said they'll bring it. So,
AJ
I
and
get
I
all
are
kinds of
both like,
chips.
oh, what kind of wood?
it's a mixed load. So it's, if they cut a pine tree down, you know, amongst their oak and maple and everything, then, you know, you're gonna get a piece of pine. Which is good for a chimney.
That's true. Not very good for the lathe.
No, no, definitely.
Well, thank you, Fred.
Thanks, Fred.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Fred.
Sorry Peg took up most of your time.
Your Lyman River has held well in all the rainstorms that we have. The water just goes whizzing down with no rock, so I haven't needed to shovel and ask for a shirt. So I know it did. There you go.
It never dies.
Never doubt you, Fred.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and we're at a little after 8. And we have a Conservation Commission joint meeting with the board. Do we want to do this right now, or?
So the Conservation Commission has theirs actually posted at 8:30.
Okay,
So we could just start with a little bit of overview, or we could wait and I could do a few more items, whichever is the preference of the commission and the select board.
why don't we go through what's left here?
Okay,
And then by that time, we'll be closer to 8:30.
okay. Would you like the town
Town administrator report.
Okay, let me just open that up. All right, so just a reminder, the UMass Community Needs Assessment is out. It's now available to read on the COA website, Council on Aging website, on our Berlin home webs page. And the town, along with UMass Boston, will present the findings from the study on Thursday, September 14th at 6 o'clock. We will be doing this hopefully both in person and via Zoom as a hybrid meeting, one of our first hybrid meetings that we are hoping to have. The goal of this meeting will be to review the research and answer any questions that residents might have. If you do look at the report and have questions, you can feel free to email Victoria Flynn at coadirector@townofberlin.com. We will anonymously pass questions on to UMass Boston so they can prepare them as part of their presentation. And if you need a hard copy of the report, please also reach out to Victoria at coadirector@townofberlin.com. I have an update on the I-495-290 ramp construction, which has been lovely. Waze and Google have been routing traffic through Berlin, which I'm sure everyone's tired of and familiar with. So we've actually been working with the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission and Mass DOT to try to address some of the congestion in town resulting from Waze and Google redirecting cars off of I-495 and 290 due to that ramp construction that's going on. Mass DOT has actually been great. They've offered to assist us by providing some temporary feedback signs and restriping along the intersections of Pleasant Street at Route 62 and Pleasant Street at South Street to better direct and control the flow of traffic. Also putting up some more speed signs and permanent speed signs. We're missing one on South Street, I believe, or Pleasant Street, it's missing. And the good news is the construction is starting to come to an end. There'll be 2 lanes opening up by the end of '23, and the full construction will be complete by the spring of '24. So hang on just a little bit longer with the traffic. I know we've got to make it through another winter with that traffic. So, you know, hopefully the signage and the intersection restriping will be helpful. I wanted to also report under personnel that the assistant treasurer collector position has been advertised and we've received a few resumes to date. We put it out with priority given to applications received by September 1st. So hopefully we can start reviewing applications in a couple of days. We're also looking for a per diem council on aging van driver. So anyone who's interested should contact Victoria as well. And I actually was going to put this part in, but now I think I don't have to. We're still looking for a 8-hour-a-week transfer station attendant.
I don't think so. That position should be filled by the end of this week.
So I have good news to update since Friday when I wrote the report. So yes, we're moving forward with that and filling that position. We are actually, as I mentioned, we're working on the hybrid meeting upgrades in the 2 rooms down the hall. So they actually had to come back, and they're coming back on the 31st to hopefully finish that off. I'm pleased to report, for those of you who have enjoyed our fresh fridge in the hallway, that we've been funded for another year of that grant. They gave Maya gave us $5,000 wellness grant, and the fridge outside offers healthy food and snacks for purchases at a discounted rate. We are also working to develop a plan and build a team to assist with the current state of emergency declaration that the governor has put out regarding unsheltered migrant families. I've been attending some Conservation Commission meetings looking at wetland mitigation measures at Highland Ridge, and we talked about the horse arena earlier this evening. I've also been meeting with the Historical Commission to talk about a comprehensive approach to 1870 and Bullard, the first of which is looking at the drainage, because as we know, you can see it coming down the hill from 1870. So we don't want to patch it at the bottom first and then realize we still have a problem at the top. And continued work on the River Bridge Development Agreement. That's all I have for you.
Well, I was going to mention under the liaison and board questions on agendas that about the Salomon Pond Mall, the grand
yes.
opening.
Yep.
And it's on August 31st at 10:45 next to Old Navy on the first floor, correct?
What is this for?
This
gonna
is
say.
Solomon Pond Mall, the grand opening.
If I could, we have the chair of our Economic Development Committee here who might know more about the event.
Yeah, did you get any more information?
No. It's
Okay.
at 11, it's at 11 o'clock, and I know what I read.
And
Right.
I'm glad that you were able to connect us with Liz and Mark.
Yep.
And the reason it came up is because a friend of mine saw it online somewhere and said,
Yeah.
"Are we invited?"
It's the Marlboro, whatever the Marlboro website newspaper is,
Yes.
Yeah.
had it online.
Good patch.
Because it is 7 new stores going into the Solomon Pond Mall. Including, and a couple of them are in the food court that, has needed a little more life.
Yes.
But they're excited that it's the article talk, it's the largest mall, like between Springfield and Natick or something like that. I mean, it is a substantial mall. and-
What did they say? Just clothing.
Yeah,
Right.
I have the list
Clothing
here.
store or something.
Clothing
Or
store,
mall.
The Daily Thread, Valley Artisans, a For Your Entertainment Pop Culture and Physical Media Retailer, a shoe store, In Style Kicks, 2 Designing Women, a streetwear clothing store,
It's
Track
like having
23.
Google on the board.
And not yet confirmed, but opening at the mall are Shoe Supply, J&J Pizza, and Let's Gourmet Sweets.
Excellent.
So I mean, it
Well,
is
that will
good because that's a
hopefully that will
large,
help.
large taxpayer in town, and
Yes.
it's struggling like others. But I think from what we hear, and sometimes even Liz at some of the points, who's the general manager,
General manager.
Yep, of the mall, that it's doing better than some of its peers, and you can go to other malls in the state and even out of the state, and they're definitely more empty than we're seeing
In our mall.
at our mall.
Yeah.
I still would like it into a pickleball court.
I'm sure most of you know that they're in receivership. That means the bank
Mm.
owns it and runs it. And they switched management as of August 1st. So that should be a boost in the aura.
Hmm.
Right, and they luckily changed management companies, but Liz, the general manager, moved from one company to the other, so you
Yeah,
both get
She
a,
remains, and all
Yep.
the folks on the ground
Yep.
remain. So,
Still like
Yeah.
to make a request for an indoor pickleball court.
coming right up.
yeah.
You gotta have indoor now?
What are we gonna do in the wintertime? Shovel?
What winter?
Maybe.
Yeah, really.
You're from New England, you can get out there in your boots. And
Yes,
your-
I can. I can get out my
parka.
boots and
Yeah,
my shorts
that'll
and
be a-
go
that'll be a
shovel.
fun
Yep.
event.
Can we
Yeah.
just enclose the tennis court and the basketball court that we just?
Yeah, we'll just get some plastic. All right.
So I was just gonna let you know, if you were letting people know
Yes.
that I would like to go to.
Okay, I will let them know. Anyone else planning to?
I'd love to go, but I'd leave
I need
my
to check
staff-
my
right, I
Okay.
have a staff
schedule at
meeting
work.
that
Just let
Yep.
Kristen know. All right.
Hey, I had a few questions for you.
Yes.
Last we met, so like that, not last week, but last we met, we had talked about the FinCom appointments, and you had sent a letter to the chair.
Yes.
Perhaps I missed it. Was there any notice? Is there any movement on finding a replacement for the 2 open slots?
So the next meeting of the FinCom is scheduled for September 13th. And I understand from the chair that this will be discussed at that meeting.
Okay. All right, so that can hold off. So obviously, there's been a ton of correspondence this week. The one from Maplewood, are we doing anything? Is it all DEP? I know that there's issues about trespassing on private property. There's work done on the weekends, not like dirt being dumped off, but work being done. So who oversees that? Do we have any responsibility of it? Is it just a so sad, too bad, deal with it?
No, if people have concerns, they should bring it to our attention. We can report it to DEP because they are under a order of compliance, I believe it is, from
Superseding
DEP.
order of conditions.
Thank you. Superseding order of conditions. I was well outside of my blah for this evening.
So there should be no more dirt importation up there, correct?
There is not any soil importation, so the only thing they can do is submit packages in preparation for once they've remediated their superseding order of conditions.
But if they're submitting packages and we're paying for those packages are probably not going to be available when they're ready, so why do we pay for those packages?
Well, unfortunately, there's nothing in the order that says they can't submit soil packages, so I'm not really sure that we could I know.
So we're paying for dirt that we may never use.
Perhaps, yes.
Okay.
Although they are working on the weekends, so maybe they're trying to get it done fast.
Yeah, but when you work on the weekends, you're also disturbing all the abutters.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and there's nothing that you can do to stop them.
Well, and if that's, I could certainly reach out on the weekend work, because we have noise ordinance in the town if they're working too early or too late. It's 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., I believe. After 11 and before 7.
I think it's before 7
11
and
to
after 9.
Is it 9?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's
That was
9.
mine.
Sorry.
At least that was the number that came to my brain too. So.
Yeah. What about trespassing on private property?
You should call the police. They shouldn't be trespassing on private property.
Okay.
I mean, seriously, I mean, I know that sounded funny. I didn't mean it to be funny, but no, I mean, they shouldn't be out trespassing, and I can certainly bring that to DEP's attention as well. If they are out on someone's property without permission, then I would call and let the police know that they're out there, and they can come out and figure out what's going on and why they're out there.
Okay. All right, I had payroll questions, but we're almost at 8:30, so I will.
I have
Wait.
your stickies. I'm working on getting you answers.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
My plan was to have them for you today. but
That's
it just
okay, I
didn't
know
happen.
things happen, but that's all right.
Trains derail.
Trains derail.
Yeah.
You know, little things.
So you all set?
Yeah, I mean, the homeless families, Kristen covered that. Has there been any interest from anybody in town?
Yes.
Excellent, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what is this?
So, the
Homeless?
state of emergency with trying to shelter migrant families,
Oh,
and a
yes.
lot of hotels
Yes.
they're being placed in hotels. So we wanted to make sure that
Right.
we had a plan in place. We've got a good group of people. Folks have been responding and saying, "Hey, I'll be the person. If you need someone from the schools, I'll be the person."
Okay.
You know,
Good.
it's been really good. A good response. So
Great.
What does the state of emergency enable?
it was enacted.
No, what does it do?
Allows them to, it allows the state basically to access federal resources because their shelters are over capacity.
To act as federal resource?
Access federal resources to assist with the overcapacity in the shelter system.
So does the town get paid?
No, so what's happening is the shelter system is maxed out. So right now, there are a lot of families that are being placed in hotels. The state is paying for it, but they don't have the money necessarily for the services to go with it, whether it be food, groceries, translation services for people that don't speak English, what to do about school starting in a few weeks. So
Immunizations.
there's a lot of issues, absolutely. So we were trying to make sure, our hotel that we have here is typically at 95% capacity, and it's one of the more expensive hotels, and they typically rent a block of rooms, because they're not gonna isolate one family out in the middle, of a hotel by themselves typically.
Middle of Berlin.
Well, I didn't mean it that way, but.
That might be
you know.
torture.
What was the town that kicked this off? Was Stockbridge, wasn't it?
Sturbridge.
Sturbridge.
Yes, so it happened in Sturbridge, and that's a relatively small rural town of 9,000 people. So I'm part of a small town administrators group, listserv, and we were notified that folks were placed in hotels with limited services, and the town was notified the next day that, hey, there's people here, and we just want to make sure that we have at least some type of framework in place to assist folks if they do end up being placed in hotels here. I think the likelihood is low, given, as I was saying, the capacity of the hotel that's at 95% occupancy, and the fact it is also a more expensive hotel. And they are trying to put people in, they're trying to place a lot of people, so they're going for the cheapest rates, honestly, that they can get for hotels. But we just wanted to be prepared. So I've been
Right.
doing a lot of work. I've been in contact with our state legislators. They're working with Marlboro, Northborough, a lot of the surrounding communities to assist them. So they already have a process in place. And so we just wanted to get a few key stakeholders aware and ready to assist should we need anything.
Right, and those federal dollars are used to ramp up those services relatively fast.
Correct.
I don't do that direct work. My agency is running a couple of hotels for the state, and on day one when we have 3 staff we've pulled from another program, it's more limited. But some of the families we're serving, immunizations was happening the day I was there. I do IT stuff, so I was fixing the printers, other stuff. But an immunization clinic had showed up to make sure all the kids had the right immunizations, and they were evaluating how much English everyone knew, and who had relatives nearby, and who didn't. And some of the things these families have gone through to get to where they're at it is amazing, the resiliency and problem-solving skills some of these families have.
Absolutely.
Are these families being transferred here without consent, or is this?
Migrant refugees.
No, but is it they're being shipped up by Texas, or?
No, I
Nope.
think it's part of the federal response. At least for our agency, we've all known they were coming. The state knew they were coming. We might not know exactly because they're showing up. Things are being processed fast. So we think there's 2 kids, but there's really 4 kids. We think there's 6 kids, but there's only 1. We think the father's there, but it's not a father. It's really an older uncle. It's but that they're getting the resources. I think they're doing their best to keep people from similar countries together. One, because then the cultural knowledge can be deeper, and there's less language barriers if at least all the families speak the same language, and there's some support even among each other. But it is. Yeah, I think we're doing our part. There's people coming into the country, and it should be spread, I think, between all the states doing their parts.
I will also say too that there has been a significant refugee migration from Haiti in particular, if you're following the news. And I learned recently that Boston is actually has the third largest Haitian immigrant population in the country. So it is a natural place that folks may have relatives. It's a place to come where there is a population. And one of the more tragic things that I learned is, if you're familiar with Haiti, it's predominantly French speaking. They've been finding that the folks have been traveling through South America for so long, they've actually learned Spanish because they had to learn how to communicate. I just can't imagine actually being on the road through your migration so long that you've picked up another language. So it is really a dire situation that the state is trying to get federal resources involved, and we just want to be ahead of the game. That's all.
Okay.
And do you know, and thank you for putting the message up on the blinky sign. Do you know if it went up? And I don't see Fred.
Fred go. He ran out conveniently.
I know.
Let me check with
Okay.
him.
And for those in the audience, I just asked if a message could go up on the blinky sign just to say, "School's open, drive carefully."
I will
Just so that
double
people
check.
are aware, because there was an unfortunate accident in another state where a child lost his life.
Yeah.
So, just a request to remind people to hit the brakes on Wednesday. There's buses out.
Especially if you
What-
get sent through
Is it tomorrow?
webways.
When does school actually start?
30th, Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Wednesday, oh, right,
Yes.
the Wednesday before Labor Day now, yes.
So thank you for doing that, and
Absolutely.
hopefully Fred got it up. I haven't had a chance to go that way in
I will
town.
double check.
Okay. All right. That's it.
Well, it's 8:30.
Look at that, yay!
So, we're going to talk about the potential lease of conservation lands on Rattlesnake Hill, Mount Pisgah, by Verizon for a cell phone tower.
And conservation will need to open their meeting because
Okay.
they are also now joining but having their own meeting.
Correct.
Are we taking
Um,
minutes?
You
are
You
kind
can
of,
do it
sort
on
of?
playback. You can just
Yeah,
pull them.
they'll be taking minutes on the, Maddie's
Yeah,
taking
Maddie's
for
taking
conservation, but
minutes.
for us. Yep.
Okay.
We'll watch it back and make sure we get the minutes done.
Okay, okay. Just thought of that.
So I'm gonna open the joint Conservation Select Board meeting at 8:30, August 28th. Bang, gavel. You guys don't use that nearly enough. I would
No.
use it all the
Just
time.
slide it down to Carol and she'll take care of it.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
There you go.
So,
Mary got that for us.
So I believe we have representative from Verizon here this evening.
Wants to come up?
Please
Sure.
feel free to come on up. I didn't know if you were hiding over in the
maybe.
back corner. I
You
wasn't
were.
sure. I was looking going, I think one of you is Igor, but I'm not sure. So welcome. If you'd like to introduce yourselves to the Select Board and the Conservation Commission.
Sure.
How you doing, members of the board? My name is Igor Yevsuk. I work for Structure Consulting Group. We are real estate acquisition vendors for Verizon Wireless New England East region. I met with the Conservation Commission in the past. I talked to Kristen a few times. Also today with me is Craig Hartman from TowerCo. It's a tower developer for Verizon Wireless as well. So two of us here to answer all your questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, through the chair, the way I thought we might do this is just kind of, I could give a bit of an overview of one of the things, what we've been talking about. I know you've met with the Conservation Commission.
correct.
And the Conservation Chair and the Select Board Chair and myself met and had a conversation about your interest. And from what I gather, it's looking at a potential cell tower over on what we know as Rattlesnake Hill. And it is not in a conservation restriction, but it is conservation land. So there are some potential challenges that come with that. I don't know if you're familiar with Article 97 in the state of Massachusetts.
Vaguely, maybe you can.
Yeah. So I figured what I might just start with is, of course, the difficult stuff, and then we'll tell you the good stuff, because you always give the bad news first, right? So the one thing that we are a little bit up against is the fact that it is in the intent of the land was to be in conservation. And so there are a number of steps that you have to jump through. I don't remember what I did with my, it's right here. That you have to jump through in order to remove land from conservation. And the process, so removing land from what's called Article 97 is a bit onerous. And because the goal of Article 97 was to retain conservation land in perpetuity. So there's a couple of things that we would have to do as a town. We would have to identify a suitable replacement land to put into conservation. That I don't see as a huge deal since we like to conserve land in town,
Here's
and that's
my
a
list.
good thing. Right, exactly. Conservation would have to vote that the property to be used would be a surplus. You have to vote it a surplus property first.
And it has to be the same size or the same size or bigger?
Suitable replacement land dedicated to conservation purposes. So we'd have to look into a little bit. I assume acreage would probably come into play there. This was just kind of a general sort of overview that I got of what some of the things we'd have to do would be. I can look into whether it's acreage. So, and then also you do need a vote of town meeting to transfer custody of that property to the select board, and then it does actually require petitioning the state legislation, special legislation, to remove it from that restriction. So that is my only sort of not so great news, because it is a little bit challenging. That doesn't mean that it can't be done. And I believe that I don't want to speak on behalf of the boards, but there is interest from the conversations that we have had. And I just don't know how we would get through all of those steps in the process. And I just wanted to be very upfront with you, since we, emailed. I did a lot of research and made sure that I had that information to present to you all and share it with you at the same time. So I don't know if you want to speak a bit about, kind of what your concerns would be. And we can speak a little bit on the board's questions and concerns that they have. I'm not sure, Chris, how you'd like to kind of run things, or Carolyn, how you'd like to run things, but
I will.
yes.
I mean, either that or just,
Suffolk Valley Trustees, I believe, has an easement on that too. Now, I don't know if we can override that, and I wouldn't want to, frankly, but,
on Rattlesnake Hill?
yeah.
I don't think so.
We
Power
donate.
line easement, it's only power line
If
easement.
if Sudbury Valley Trustees has a CR on it, and we usually donate a CR to SVP in order to put a double layer of protection on our conservation land. If that's on there, you gotta deal with that too.
So it doesn't appear to be under a CR from the research that we were able to do.
Okay.
But what it was it was acquired for conservation purposes using open space acquisition funds. So, and the deed was conveyed to the town through the Conservation Commission. That's what makes it conservation land and conservation held and owned, even though it doesn't have that additional step of the CR on it. So Article 97 is this new legislation that came through that, it puts a lot more restriction on what you can do with that land, with the goal of keeping conservation land in perpetuity. I generally believe there's certainly a willingness from the town to work with you folks, or I most certainly wouldn't have wasted your time. But I wanted to make you aware of some of those potential obstacles to that, so.
Still interested?
We didn't scare you off.
I mean, I guess the question would be, what would be next steps that you as a town would do, and then what you would want us to do, because ultimately we cannot do anything with it until you guys issue RFP for that piece of land for us to
Sure.
move forward. So even before that, a lot of steps I guess you need to accomplish.
I was
here.
going to say, so the RFP actually comes after all of these steps.
Exactly, yeah.
So what we would actually have to do is take it to town meeting, which we're talking winter town meeting, hopefully December, January. If we can get it on for that. If not, it would have to go to May. I just would have to check the timing. If we could get it on this one, it might have to wait till May.
Understood.
And then if it was approved by the town, so it does require a 2/3 majority, then it would go to the state for special legislation, which
Who knows?
sometimes that can take a little while.
Like we said before, it took, almost 2 years for that liquor license legislation.
Right, but that was during COVID, so I'm hoping
Yes,
that
well,
might have
that's-
slowed it
I hope
down.
that's why.
Right.
We all do.
And then, one of the things we have to look at is if there's any funding agency that was used, any funding that was used to purchase, that's one other piece, funding used to purchase that land, that has any claim to receipt of funds back. So if there were CPA funds or there were mitigation funds that went into it, we may have to return those funds if we do any kind of a lease or sale.
So it
CPA
most
then.
likely would have been Solomon Pond mitigation money.
Yep, okay.
So whatever however that affects that.
So we'd
We also would need to identify, so just refresh my memory, we're talking about a 50-foot by 50-foot square,
Exactly.
right?
And the access road.
And the access road,
Yeah.
right? So it's not
Okay.
like we're talking acres, so
No,
to
we don't
find.
need, you don't
Right.
need the whole thing. If you guys can, subdivide it in a way that, it's just that.
Yep, that makes it even
for
easier.
everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't need anything outside of that.
Right, so if replacement piece of property were to come into question.
It's a small.
I
Your-
got
your
50 feet in
backyard,
my
I was gonna
backyard.
say. Carolyn's got it for you. We're all set.
I got some that's
Yeah.
wet.
You could- right, you
Okay.
get some wetlands.
I get some wetlands.
Yeah, so
That's small.
it's,
Yeah.
finding a piece of property that we want to protect that you guys actually want to pay for. For,
swap.
as a
For- it's
replacement
only a
for
swap, yeah.
50 square feet is,
Tiny.
How would
just.
how would the road and the electricity play into this?
In terms of,
Conservation land, it has to cross conservation land to get to the site, right?
Yeah.
So there is already somewhat of a cart
There is
path.
access right now. And it's being used for, there's a hay field there.
Right, there
Somebody's-
is already a curb cut. There is already somewhat of a path.
Would that have to be repurposed? Would that have to come under this legislation in town?
It would have to be replaced with something else, yes. So it would be 50 square feet plus whatever.
What about
amount
the
of
electric
land.
line? The electric line, does that count? I'm not.
I doubt
That would run through the access and utility easement, so that would be that would all be the same part of that property in that instance. So we could structure the access and utility easement all in the same.
Okay.
So long as, the power company is amenable to that and doesn't wanna run it their own way, like they might wanna do.
Then you're screwed.
Yeah. Well, then we have bigger pieces of
Right.
land we
Yep.
can look at.
But we can, from that standpoint, we'd say, it's
We
a
can
restriction.
calculate that,
Exactly,
like,
yes.
assume it's
Right.
20-foot easement for the access and for utilities, given the distance, they'll calculate the actual acreage, but I
Mhm.
think
Yeah.
it's still gonna come up as something small as far as parcels go.
okay. I think the one thing to keep in, oh, I'm sorry. One thing to keep in mind would be there would be some legal costs that would be incurred on your end to assist with this process. So that would be something that Verizon would need to
Mhm.
be willing to work with
Okay.
us on. And obviously, once it would be approved by town meeting and the special legislation would happen, we would have to issue, as you said, that request for proposals prior to entering into the lease, because unfortunately, it is, even though it's a lease, it's considered disposition of property under Mass General Law. So it does require that town meeting approval and actual RFP process where people can present. Now, I'm assuming that 50-foot by 50-foot piece in the middle of the woods is probably not overly appealing to a lot of other people.
I mean,
So
the only-
you're probably
yeah,
okay, but
yeah,
we
the
do
only-
have to put it out.
The only entities might be bidding that is maybe our competitors or something. Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
exactly. I don't think you're going to find a lot of other competitors, but you never know, and we do have to go through that public process.
And so our goal tonight is, in some respects, just making sure that Select Board and Conservation Commission are on the same page to sort of kick this out, but start going, like that we're willing to sponsor the
Town meeting.
article in the town meeting, thank you.
And the
Is that-
Verizon, given those constraints,
Right.
potential constraints and time frame, is still willing to move forward. I don't know what your timeline is. I know.
We would know once if it's January or May.
Yep.
If we get a vote,
Yep.
positive vote.
I didn't know how quickly you needed to move.
We understand the tower like that, it takes a couple of years to build
Okay.
and build,
Okay.
It's not a 6 months process. we know.
Oh, okay, good. I want to make sure we were all on the same page with the
No,
time
just-
frame.
Yeah.
Okay.
Igor, do you have any environmental studies? Because I'm sure that's going to be a question with a cell tower not in my backyard.
Yeah, not yet. We'll definitely, as a part of Verizon process and a TowerCo process, we'll do, we usually do phase 1 regardless, and then once that comes up, we'll see what else is needed, if needed. If there is a wetlands or, anything of that nature. Verizon's actually very restrictive on their usage. Usually, like, the only thing that would impact wetlands is diesel backup generator. In this case, we deploy propane generators.
great.
As far as,
And there's
I
some
mean,
wetlands anyway.
phase one wouldn't cover any, like we doing SHPO, NEPO, section 106, all that stuff. So if any protected piece, like species and endangered species, what you call it, I mean, that stuff usually comes up during that.
Okay.
So phase one will start that process, and now regulatory SHPO and NEPO review will start all that. I mean, hopefully nothing comes up, but I mean, if there's endangered flight, there is nothing we can do. I'm sorry. But,
No, I know, but
yeah.
there's also the health concerns too about whatever magical things
Oh,
come
as
off
far
of
as
the tower.
we
And
usually prepare. I mean, we can only do what's required by the government, federal standards. So we
Okay.
usually prepare study. We hire the outside expert. Or somebody we can recommend. You guys can choose your own. I mean, and do usually as a part of zoning process. We usually do that. If that's required for the town meeting, we can talk about that too.
Okay.
I mean, we can discuss that. There's couple scientists who do it in the state for everybody.
I think if they just say it's coming.
Yeah. So that, I mean, they usually those studies. I mean, tower being that far away in the woods, usually not a concern to anybody. I mean, that's why we kind of chose this parcel because it's a big parcel, no immediate neighbors, out everybody's sight, and we meet all the federal standards. I mean, they provide the study to show that. That's all I can say.
So here's a question for you. You drive down Route 2, you see that god-awful fake tree that everyone knows it's not a tree.
Yeah.
Would you, well, it's not. No. Would you be doing fake decorations, or is it like far
I mean,
enough off the
those
roadway
actually
where
got
it's
to be
not?
much better. I mean, I personally was involved. Yeah, I personally was involved in one Martha's Vineyard, just kind of like something I'm proud of. So we built a tower Martha's Vineyard that nobody can actually see, and it's a tree. And that's actually when President Obama was in the office that we built it because he was vacationing there all the time. So, I mean, it took like a couple of years to build, but that's actually a really good looking tree. You
Okay.
wouldn't even see it unless you know it's there.
So it's not a- it's-
it's just a matter of how much you spend.
Looking for it? Yes, okay.
No, it's how I
Okay.
mean, the old ones were bad. Now they actually build pretty good ones.
Okay.
And that's something we're willing to entertain. Some towns like the tree, some towns like just your great towers. I mean, that's up to the town.
I'm just trying to think of potential questions that could come up. You know, the
Yeah.
environmental study, the health study, does it look like a really bad fake tree study?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
Great.
I mean usually during zoning all that discussed, and we do simulations. We fly the balloons so people can see where it is and stuff like that. But that's further down the
Yeah,
road.
right.
Okay.
Once we have
Right,
at
when we
least
start doing the RFP process, we can add sort of, for a successful RFP, it must do, A, B, and C,
Right. That's the nice thing about the RFP. You can really add that criteria to it and say, well,
Hold on.
Um,
Oh, God.
What?
I
Oh,
was
you
going
the
to say
chair?
something. I am the chair,
Oh.
actually.
How about it?
Yeah. So before we get to RFPs and designing the tree,
fake tree.
the fake tree,
Fake tree.
I think one of the biggest questions will be is what is the benefit to the town and to
Yep.
the Conservation Commission, and kind of work that part out, because that's the only reason that we're amenable is because there are benefits to the town. So what are those benefits? And those should be spelled out and figured out.
Absolutely.
Sure. I think because the RFP process comes at the end, any type of monetary benefit wouldn't be able to be necessarily defined at this time, because that would all come out as part of the RFP process. But obviously there's a monetary benefit to a lease. And I think we'd want to maybe understand how our reception perhaps would improve. I think that would be useful in town. I don't know if we have our chief still back there. I can't see. You're hiding
Yes.
behind. If there's any cell tower and any benefit to your radio issues that you have from the tower. Or
As of today, no.
Okay.
But we are obviously
Did you recognize
expanding
him?
and we're
Did you
working on
recognize him?
interoperability with
What's
neighboring
going on?
towns. So we may want to
What is
secure
the-
a spot
I
for
wanna speak.
neighboring
Expect
towns
to recognize.
that will be on our frequency with us.
I'm gonna
To cover
sneak on
like the
this.
courthouse district. We may be able to get departments that will want to put their antenna out there that there's 7 communities that go to the courthouse, and it'd be a perfect location. to
And-
invite them in to put their antennas up, you know, and because now we can do like dual band antennas, like one antenna will take in 2 bands now. We don't need like a singular antenna for everybody, we're trying to get everybody on the same frequencies
Yep.
now as it is, so.
Who are you using for emergency services right now? Are you using one of the cell carriers as well? Are you using Verizon or AT&T through FirstNet or
Well, we
anything
have
like that?
we have FirstNet for our
Okay.
phones, but
Yep.
for our radio systems, we just
Okay.
have space on the antenna.
But you are using FirstNet through AT&T for that, for those, okay?
If Verizon wants to give us a better deal?
Sure. Well, so us
open.
as a tower company, so we're working and developing the tower for Verizon.
Yeah.
But our goal is to make sure that we add facility for all carriers. So from that standpoint, where I have relationships with, also with AT&T and T-Mobile, I can bring them into the picture as well to get them to co-locate on the tower also.
Yeah, the program that FirstNet put out for us, I
Yep.
think pretty much every town is on FirstNet right
Yep,
now.
yeah, for the yes, yeah, because
I mean, we can
the
have like
state
10
is.
phones for the price of 3.
Yep,
You know, so.
good, okay.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Bickford.
Yeah, just in way of a brief history on this, by the way. That was owned by a good friend of mine, born and grew up in Berlin, longtime family in Berlin, loves Berlin. And they were almost ready to sign papers with one of the most aggressive developers ever hit this town. And that would be there'd be a McMansion up there and it'd be all houses all over that place. But I talked to him and we cut a deal and we saved it. So I've got a little skin in the game here. And right now, I had thought that this wouldn't be a bad idea because I figured that, number one, if we don't get 35 grand a year in rental out of that, we're crazy. And that rightfully should go to conservation. But I was informed earlier today by the select person, there's no way that's gonna happen. And I didn't get an idea that anybody would support increasing our budget or something to make up for it, number one. But I'm against it. And when I talk to people and they think, oh, well, Conservation Commission's gonna get 30, 40 grand out of this every year to help buy more land, we'll go along with it. But to swap that for a 50-foot by 50-foot piece of land some other place, I'm dead against it, and I'm sure that there's more people against it than you think, from what I've talked around. So, you're talking about this like it's a fait accompli. It isn't. I don't like to see conservation land. I work too hard to protect it.
Anybody else?
What is your approximate budget for this?
Who are you asking?
I'm asking the two fellows.
I mean,
What's your budget?
I mean, ultimately, we have like starting point, but it's ultimately defined by RFP usually. The town usually put a minimum bid amount. So if bid amount doesn't come in, basically RFP is not really awarded. I would say just from Verizon's purposes, probably around $25,000 a year, plus or minus. But as Greg mentioned, there will be a allocation there. So there's opportunity to get more, and we can talk about the way the lease works, and the structure of the lease, and maybe some revenue share and stuff like that, but that's all part of the RFP. You cannot really talk about it, because it's all,
It's all speculative now.
Yeah, it's all speculative at this point. So
Each additional user, how much would you estimate each user would bring?
I would say, each user probably around the same. So if there's 3 users, you might be looking to $78,000 a year.
So through the
Seems
chair.
worth thinking
But
about.
that's
That's the total, so, because we take development costs into it as well, so that would be what the carriers would pay for their lease. And then from there, what we would be able to provide would be a revenue share off of that.
What would the net be, obviously, I'm asking.
You probably, in the vicinity, you're probably talking about, from that standpoint, maybe another, 10 to 20% for each additional carrier on that. So you're probably talking in the neighborhood of roughly, the gentleman here, roughly in the, probably $40,000 or so a year.
For multiple users.
Correct.
If it's a single user, what's the net?
Say, would be less than that, more closer to about, your 20, 25-ish or so. Again, depending on really how the RFP is structured and how it all works. But there's certain things that we can offer. Unfortunately, it's through the RFP, but we can kind of be creative if you guys have special projects that you're looking to fund, where we could offer some type of a lump sum payment up front for a part of that term, which might help offset some other costs that you guys have, as well as if you need to fund the land towards someone else and offset those payments. So there are creative ways of going about how to finance it for you.
If I may, then, if I understand that agreed, the land, assume for a moment that, we take care of all the other stuff. At the end, the tower would be owned by Verizon, but there'd be some sort of like agreement with the town that like in theory, some sort of revenue sharing or something.
The tower actually be owned by TowerCo.
Oh, TowerCo.
As a
sorry.
developer,
Yep.
and then what we do is we then lease space to.
Okay.
So it basically, a tower acts as really like almost like like an office building per se, and we'll collect a rent, and then we can offer a revenue share for each additional carrier.
Right, and at some point, if a revenue share, if it ends up being not economically feasible, then you just don't bid on the RFP because we said we want,
Correct.
we want 200% of all the rent that you
Yes,
bring in. You're like,
exactly.
well, then there's no money in it for us, and we'll go away.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, but the
Right,
rule
yeah,
is
yeah.
basically
Because depending, obviously, on development costs, and your development costs on a site similar to this is
Right.
probably going to cost upwards of $500,000. Never mind soft costs and everything that might be associated with going through and taking the land out of conservation and such. So there's, with all those factors in play, obviously there needs to be a return.
Yeah.
What's the lease length?
Typical
Can you shut
ground,
this
so
down?
Yeah.
your typical ground lease is normally anywhere between a 5 or 10-year initial term, with renewals that could go as much as, and again, depending on how the RFP is written, you could have rent coming in knowing that it's gonna be there for the next 25 to 50 years. And what the good benefit is for this is that once a carrier goes and co-locates on a tower, typically they're pretty much guaranteed to stay there, so long as you have a friendly landlord and such, and you're working with them, then the way that the networks are designed, they really can't move from there. So, and they know that they're providing coverage in that area. So, and each cell phone tower is designed to communicate with their surrounding towers. So if you start messing with that, then it creates an issue all across. So typically, if you know that, you've got a carrier there, you're pretty good that Verizon's gonna be there for the next 25 plus years. So it's a long-term benefit. It's not a short-term benefit.
So you would be able to offer a map of Berlin where coverage could be increased? Because there's
Yeah,
definitely
yep.
some dead spots in
Sure,
town.
yep.
And I know the high school in Boylston is also, they have issues there. So,
They would negotiate.
understanding
Yep.
how moving forward with this would benefit the residents.
Students and parents.
Students and parents and
Well,
emergency personnel
Yeah,
and
things like that, we can
whoever
give
else.
us a list what you want for the town meeting. I would assume town meeting would be the next, or I mean, you guys of course discuss internally and figure it out.
Yes.
We can provide that sound could be generated pretty easily, because we do it for zoning all the time. Map before and after.
Right.
It's usually
Yeah,
speaks
we
better
try-
than any words, you can kind of see.
Show you a propagation map and I show you what the coverage looks like and how it is existing now and what it would look like with the addition of the tower.
We had a deal on another piece of land that was under conservation restriction, not fee owned. And we don't get 25% of what they had talked about in the deal of it. So keep your left up and get something in solid writing before you do it. And again, this isn't fait accompli yet. I'm hearing all these benefits to the town. What's it doing for the environment? What are we doing for open space? What are we doing for ecology? That's why we're supposed to be here, not rooting for the town government.
Well, I think at this
think we're-
point, I don't know whether you're thinking that we need to decide, do we continue conversations? Or,
Continue,
Questions, answers from the
oh,
audience and.
this evening?
well, I mean, or at another meeting?
Right.
I mean, we're all seemingly
On the same
positive.
Right.
But-
I think I know that from our standpoint, we would need to have an understanding of how the town would benefit,
Mhm.
how the residents would benefit, and how conservation would benefit
Mhm.
before I would take a vote at
Right.
a meeting as to whether we would support this or not. So
Well,
I
what
think we
I'm
need
saying-
more information.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, at this point, we do want to continue conversations.
I
and
think it's
questions
worth
and answer.
pursuing
Yeah.
in gathering the information,
Okay,
for sure.
okay.
I think we're gathering information to write an RFP, because we're not in formal negotiations. We're actually writing the RFP that we could then ultimately put out that, as you point out, you could respond to, but also other people could respond to as well. And so we are, instead of sort of asking what the benefits are to the town, I think we're in the position where we outline what would make it agreeable for us to do as a town.
Sure.
And then write an RFP, and then under a capitalistic system, you can read those and go, you know, there's no way we're going to do this, or no, these are all things we can do, and either you and or your competitors can decide to respond. When we get the responses, then we can look them over and decide we like this response better because they're giving us 75%, where these people are only giving us 20%, you know, and.
Right, but my understanding is the RFP doesn't, a real RFP doesn't happen until the end, until after it goes through all the government process and everything. So I think we would maybe do a sample RFP.
Right, so
Well,
can
right,
you?
we'd have to agree between, I think, select board and conservation, sort of what we think should be in one to make it worth going through all of this process.
Correct, that's, right, and that's what I don't feel
Yeah.
like I know,
Mhm.
is why would we do this?
Mhm.
So can they send a formal letter to us with their questions, and then we submit questions to you to come up with a bigger document to send them to Igor and Craig to say,
Sure.
I mean, would that work?
I think so.
Yeah, and I apologize because I kind of just jumped right in. I think the woods kind of fried my brain this afternoon. I should have said that this is certainly, to Walter's point, not a fait accompli. The purpose of this was to gauge whether there was interest in continuing to have the discussions.
And that was what I was trying to say.
Because obviously we
Right.
have to go, and my point was to outline, there's a number of hoops we have to
Sure.
jump through to even get to the RFP process. One of which is a 2/3 vote at town meeting, followed by the wait time that it would take for the special legislation. So I think the goal of tonight would be to gather questions, and we could forward it to you, and we'll continue our discussions internally, as you said. And, if we need to have another meeting at some point. But I think ultimately what we're going to want to know is, once we have some more internal discussions, is this something we want to put on the warrant?
Right.
And that's the next step that we need to get
Yeah.
to. That's the next question we need to get to.
Yeah.
And to put on the warrant, we'll have to know the swappable land as well.
Yes.
And so we should be looking, it could be that, again, back to the conservation point, is that really to give up this, we think this is of equal value, even if it's not of equal square footage. The 50-foot by 50-foot, of the swampland in my back, are not equal to the 50 by 50 square foot
Correct.
Up in Rattlesnake Hill. And so what does conservation think might be a decent swap for options?
And correct me if I'm wrong, this was kind of your intent as well, because
Yeah,
you've
no,
come in.
I'm just here because you told us to come over.
Yeah.
But-
I told you to be here.
We're just trying to see.
He told me to come, so.
I got all the power. No, but in my former community, there was like a no way, and you kind of want to know that, like, is there an opportunity to have the conversation, or is this a flat out, definitely no way, nobody's interested in this, and we're done? And I think that was sort of what we were hoping to get to tonight. Do we want to continue to have those questions and internal conversations?
Well, I mean, I think, if you look at it this way, Verizon, and to your point, everybody's struggling from a carrier perspective and from a customer perspective for coverage. So is it something where, the town wants to benefit from income by leasing space, or is it somewhere where, whether it's private landlord and, you know, the carriers now go and look at private landlord and rent space there and build it and go through the whole zoning process that way. So if there's, and that's kind of really what Igor and what we've done here is we'd rather see the town, knowing that the town needs that and benefit there before going to a private landlord and going that way. So I think from that standpoint, you know, that's where I think a lot of the benefit is here, where, you know, the town is now gonna be able to recognize that income.
And if I could just ask if any of the other commission members have anything they want to say?
I just have a question, this is not clear to me. So the land would be transferred to the town of Berlin, correct?
Back to us as part of the vote. It has to go back to, right, the
But not
select
the
board.
whole property.
No,
Just
that.
Just the 50.
The 50/50.
Right,
Right.
just the square
Yeah.
and the road.
Yeah, so the town would own it and lease it to Verizon.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm a what-if kind of person, so what if at some point somebody invents a system that you don't need a tower? You know, it's up in the clouds and it comes back down type of thing, right? Never know. The town would still own that land.
It's a lease. Yep, it's not a purchase, it's a
Right,
lease.
so it's a lease, so even if nothing else happened at the end of that lease, if the satellites do the job now and the cell tower, I assume it would be bonded for removal.
Correct. Yep,
Um,
sure, of course, yep.
Okay.
They remove the tower, the lease expires, it reverts back to conservation?
It would stay with the town unless you took a vote to revert it back to conservation.
Okay.
But we could make that perhaps part of the agreement that, you know, that's understood that we would take that vote should that happen.
Right.
And we can write the article any way we want and have town council write it, you know, legally however we want.
Yep.
Madam Chair, may I speak?
You may, AJ.
You were dreading this, weren't you?
Nope.
I have to say that the impact to the property as a whole is more than 50 feet by 50 feet, plus the access road. If you spent any time in the woods, if you stumble across something that seems out of place, it's noted. Anybody who uses that property continued as open space would have that sense. So that's all I had to say, is that the impact is more than the 50 by 50. And if you propose a palm tree for up there.
Flamingos.
I was just saying the flamingo.
Maybe
Flamingos.
in 10 years, but.
Some holiday lights.
But I just want to make that point that, yeah, it's 50 by 50,
Yeah.
but.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, understood.
How do you replace the sense? Yeah.
Right.
I was thinking we could get them to buy the rail bed.
Right?
I think I heard the conversation before, I mean, hear about the railway, so.
Well, not that.
Would
not
you like
the-
to buy a rail bed?
Not the active rail
Oh, okay,
bed,
all right.
not the active
Okay.
rail bed, the inactive rail bed
Gotcha.
that we need for the rail trail.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we need a piece of land
Active
that
rail
we
bed,
haven't
not
been
the
able to
rail.
fund.
Okay.
So
Ah.
Well, there's
Yeah.
possi-
Linear
Yep.
land,
Interesting.
could be a good swap.
Thank you.
Possibilities.
on there.
What would be good spot?
The, you know, the rail
All right.
bed we were
So-
buying,
Have a
the
she
rail-
or do we need to reschedule something at another time?
I liked the idea of calling questions through conservation, select
Okay.
board, getting questions to me. Perhaps one of the things you could work on is just some of the benefits that the tower has provided to some of your other communities that we could bring back and discuss internally amongst ourselves. And then I believe the next step would be a recommendation from a vote from conservation to support putting it on the warrant, and then a vote from the select board whether or not they wanted to put it on the warrant.
Right.
So that would be those next steps after you have those
And
conversations.
would we have the swap property identified by then, or?
I feel like you could do it throughout the, I mean, just to put it like a placeholder on the warrant, I don't know that you'd have to identify the property unless that's a concern for the Conservation Commission or the Select Board, so.
Right.
But that could be in the works, I guess, it's
Yeah.
up to you.
I mean, given
Okay.
you're not meeting until the 20th, and if we want to get this on the winter meeting, we gotta giddy up. So can you take a page out of Kristen's book and maybe email all your members, but blind copy them and ask them to submit questions to you?
Questions,
So
yeah.
when they submit a question, no one else sees it, so there's no open meeting law violation.
love blind
And then you
copy.
can just,
Right.
okay.
Blind copy is the best thing
Yeah.
ever invented.
Yeah.
Okay,
That just
then I
helps
think we
speed
have
it
a
up.
plan.
I
Cool.
think we have a plan.
All right.
So we'll be in touch with some
Okay,
questions.
so we're just waiting to hear from
Yep.
you
Yep.
a list of questions which will
Yep.
provide
Yep.
the response.
And then
Yep.
if you, in the meantime, you might be able to get us more, sort of a generic list of some of the benefits that you've been able to perhaps provide to some other communities, maybe near, in Massachusetts or New England. That might be helpful, just some examples. That could be helpful too, to educate us on this process. This is, I think,
Okay.
at least for me, this is new. I've, not really had these conversations, so.
Yeah.
I think it's our first cell tower for all of us. Conservation Commission, can somebody make a motion to close our meeting at 9:10?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Cool.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right.
All right,
Thank you
thank you
for
for
your time.
coming.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, I'll be in touch. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Oh, can I get you to sign in on the
Yeah.
Concom
Of course.
meeting?
Yep.
I started, but,
No problem.
All right.
yeah, just finished.
So,
I told
You guys spell your name right?
No,
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good.
so are you gonna defer your items here, or?
Oh, no.
All right,
No, no.
then you're gonna be brief.
I am going to be brief.
All right.
Well, the Boston Cane Award, I think that we can skip over because you don't. I reached out to Eloise to ask her if she had the file to show the oldest resident, and she said she sent it to Mary.
Okay, so just want me to put that
I
on
found
the
that email
11th?
today. I found that email today. I wrote down the names.
Oh, do you have it?
Evelina Romelli, Jean Pierce, and Vera Mungin in that order.
Okay.
Those are the three.
So we can confirm?
Like the oldest, the next oldest, and then.
All right.
Oh,
So,
yeah, I did see a.
so
email.
here's what I was.
I don't remember seeing
I'll wait till they leave.
We have to sign it.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you. So here's what I was thinking. I'll give you the rundown of what the Woo Sox needed from us for takeover night. They had asked to recognize two people in town, and originally I was thinking the oldest and a veteran, but understanding age might be an issue. So I would like to propose that we maybe recognize Tim Wheeler and Eloise for all that she does. And I am happy to have those conversations with them. They may say absolutely not because it's going to require them to show up and have the public announcers say really nice things about them. But, so I'm looking, thinking that those, Tim has been around with Indian Head and Cordelia Farm for years, and Eloise has been around for a
So Tim has a
while.
planning board meeting September 12th. That's why, because I'm like, I know there's a reason I can't go to the Woo Sox thing.
Yeah.
All right.
And you could get in touch with Tom Sanford and have him cancel the meeting.
Oh, I could do that. All right. So, well, and
I'm just saying,
I
that
saw-
there
I
is
mean,
a
there's a
conflict
banner.
for.
yeah. So Tim may
What's
not
that?
even want
Scholarship.
to stand up and in front of the crowd.
Usually I have posters.
And I would love to be there.
Yes, I know. All right. So what are your thoughts?
I was going to do my disclaimer about how I don't care much for this event, but.
Well, I know, and that's why I'm running with
everything.
everything, but I didn't want to run and.
I'm going to mess up the name, but the scholarship winners.
The.
Oh,
just
the
get
Mabel
the-
something,
Mabel-
something, something?
Mabel Felton Marble.
Very good. Thank
There
you.
were only two, correct?
Yeah. Did we do two?
Were there three? I
Oh.
thought there were three.
We had room for three.
Hold on.
I mean, we can do three.
Maybe.
Well, and maybe there's a chance the universe is just nice to us and we invite all three of them and one of them just is already at school, out of town, and
All right.
Well, actually, yeah, because it will be
Yeah,
September.
there's a fair
Yeah.
chance.
That
Yeah.
they may not even be
well,
here.
but
Yeah.
some of them are going to school, I think, locally. I don't think all of them were going out
All
of
right.
state.
Yeah, I don't remember.
There are three.
And where are they going?
Let's see.
I was gonna say, that's good to just know there's three. I thought it was good to come up with the answer of three. Never mind, like, where are they going?
One is going to the University of New England.
It's Western Mass.
Is that in New England?
They have
That's
camp-
right.
they-
That's
they-
about all I
they,
know.
they have several. They have several
Sue's laughing
campuses.
at
so-
me. It's
Western-
getting late. Okay.
Yeah.
Then one's going to the University of New Hampshire, which I know is in New England, and then the other one is going to Union College. That's
Yeah.
New York, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so chances are probably
Slim.
slim to
Don't
none.
know where the University of New England
What
is.
about the three
They-
people that, came and rescued at Christensen?
But they
They were
had
just
they had
honored.
their
Oh, they
own
were
Yeah.
just
they
on-
had their own
Yeah.
night. So
I thought of that too, and then I
Yeah.
went, oh, they just had their own.
Yeah.
night.
Yep.
But still,
They
you
will
know,
be coming before us, by the way, too.
All right.
That's in the works.
let me
They
reach
will?
out to Tim and
Oh,
see if
okay.
he's even in. And if he is, then I will talk to Tom to see if that meeting can be delayed. And then if not, I'll come up with 2 other people.
They could get Carolyn to buy a ticket.
Yes, because
How do you
I
buy a ticket?
I know. All right.
So the University of New England, I thought this is in Biddeford, Maine.
Right.
Oh,
That's at least their
that's-
main campus. I thought they had a couple inside, but there's their main.
Yeah.
I have a
And Biddeford's
certificate
like,
from there.
Oh,
you
It's
know,
beautiful.
Yeah.
up there.
yeah,
okay. All right.
yeah.
All right, so
Yeah,
I'll,
that's,
you know what, I'll go back to Tim and Eloise, and then if not, I'll come up with other people. All right, so one of the requirements for the takeover night was to take the town flag, which I did not even know there was one. Hello. So Eloise was kind enough to tell me to turn around, that the flag was in the office. So I will borrow it that day. It will be flown in center field and returned to me before I leave.
Cool.
So for that. National Anthem, we have a local singer who is willing to do it. It's Janet Lamey's older sister, Susan. I don't know her married name.
Giroux.
Giroux.
Thank you. So she will do that.
She has a gorgeous voice.
She
I think.
does.
Yeah.
She does. 4 mothers have forked over their children to one of them to bring out the ceremonial first pitch, and the other one's TL play ball. So we can close that out. The color guard, shout out to Chris Pendergast. He's got the Boy Scouts to do the color guard, so they will bring their own flag and their member flag for that. And I think that's it.
They let you do the announcing? Don't they have a kid that does the announcing?
Well, I gotta get all the stuff up to the booth, and they will announce it from there, so that's why I would need a write-up on whomever we choose to recognize. And I know that rec and baseball have been pushing it. I heard from Victoria down at the library. Smiley showed up down there today. She said they had the biggest turnout that they have. They passed out stickers and also brochures. I spoke with Carol Costello at the Link meeting the other night, and she approved the flyer. So unfortunately, our printer is down. So I've reached out to John Campbell to say, hey, can you do it electronically to get that out to the parents? So my angst level is definitely dropping as it gets closer. So shout out to the people in town who came through and said yes and bailed me out.
Now, can you tell the people at home when this event is going to happen, and if they want a ticket, how do they get one?
So, the Takeover Berlin night is September 12th, which is a Tuesday night. Game time is at 6:45, but if you're coming, you got to get there early because these events kick off around 6:15 to 6:30. There is a link that I can repost on Facebook for people to get it. For those who are not on the interweb, there is a brochure hanging up at the general store that you can take your phone with your QR code and go, and the link will come up to do it, and there's also a URL. So there are multiple ways, and then I can also leave things around town for people. And I may even hang out at the transfer station, oh, he's gone, one night, or one weekend, not next weekend, to hand it out and get people there. But we will definitely get the message out. I lost it somewhere.
Also, I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but I just typed in Berlin Town Takeover and it brought me
nice.
to a Woosocks page with all the town takeovers on
Okay.
it. I'm assuming you can probably buy
Yep.
tickets through there.
Yep, because the 12th is one of their last home games before the season starts. So, and as a reminder, for those who buy tickets, you can buy and not go. You can buy and go, but $5 from every ticket will benefit our food pantry that unfortunately there's been a little bit more use for it. So not only will you be supporting the people in town, but you'll be doing a good thing for your neighbors that you will never know that you've done that for. there you go. So I'll be stealing the flag in a little while.
You know how much the
The seats for the third base line are $30, subject to tax and fees, whatever that is. And there's also the berm, which is the left field seats. Those are $15, subject to taxes and delivery fees on your phone. And there's plenty of parking around the park as well. Tons to eat, tons for snacks. So it's a family-friendly event.
And the food is decent.
The food is awesome.
And reasonably priced.
And reasonably priced.
I have to say, we went to a Blue Sox game around Father's Day. Seats are great.
Yep.
Food was great.
Yeah. Family
The
friendly.
ticket, family friendly. It was, I enjoyed it so much more than I anticipated
Yes.
enjoying it.
Yes.
Who won?
Oh, I don't know. It's not why I was there.
It is literally my husband's favorite place to go, like from May to September. In fact, he starts in like when it's cold, and I'm like, can we wait till it gets a little bit warmer? Because I don't want to sit outside in the rain in a parka.
Well, the nice thing too is that if you get there early, they have the stand-up tables.
Yeah.
So you can just like
They
not
even had
skip.
tables with seats.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right,
That you can just go
behind
and
the stadium seating.
Right, that you can just go and sit
Mm-hmm.
down. Great views. I've gone twice and have had the luck of having my game rained out, and am able to go, plus get the other game.
We did a doubleheader
Yeah.
also for the same reason.
Yep. So
Yep.
I can't stress it enough.
So the seats in the two areas?
Our third base line.
No, I mean, are
Behind the
they
dugout?
all good there too?
Oh yeah, I've sat there. You get a direct.
Yep.
And then left field, you're right coming in on home plate.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So buy your tickets.
Yep.
Buy your tickets.
All right.
I'll get it out. Cool. All right,
Thank
that
you
was
very
my
much.
update.
And now we've got one more thing, I think. Discuss or vote on award of facilities assessment study.
Yes.
On that note.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. We'll see you.
Way past my bedtime.
Yeah.
Thanks for all your hard work.
Bye,
Oh,
AJ.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay. So we put out an RFP for a facilities assessment study to look at the town building. So it's a municipal
I know.
facilities study and reuse plan. And we did actually only receive one response. However, it looks like a pretty good response. So a team consisting of Peg, Fred, and myself went through and evaluated it based on the criteria that were outlined in the RFP. And they averaged from the three of us 18 out of a possible 20 points. So my recommendation would be to go with the firm of Bureau Veritas. The other good news is they are coming in not at $75,000 that we budgeted for, but $59,926 for the study. That also includes an energy evaluation for $18,000, which I'm gonna see if I can hit up the energy committee, if there's any way we might be able to use some adder funds for that, which has been up for debate, whether adder funds can be used for anything, but it's worth an ask because Tim Wysocki had mentioned the energy component, and so we included it in the RFP. So what this would give us is basically a facility conditions assessment, energy evaluation, space utilization study, and preventative maintenance consulting. So we'll actually get a database that marks all key components and systems in the building. I think it's not a bad deal for 60 grand to look at all of our buildings. You did have one question about the Brown Barn. I didn't include some of the sheds or smaller buildings, but I think we could probably include that. It's not a large building. I think they could probably put that in if we need to. And
they said that they would come in and do like one building as like a case study. So
yes.
I had asked you. So the buildings, for those who want to know, are 1870 Town Hall, our town offices, the old highway barn, the new highway barn, the library, the old fire station, the old ambulance station, aka Rudolph Building, Legion Hall, Bullard House and the Tutorial, something at the buildings at South Commons, and I think something at the transfer station. But I mean, my only concern with them, Kristen, is that they did large cities. You know, Barnstable, New Bedford, Asheville, Boston, Delaware. I was hoping for something smaller in size so that they're not going to come in and go, oh, here's a bazillion-dollar request to redo these buildings. We're a very small town. And if they could do old fire station and old ambulance station together as their pilot survey, considering the distance between them is what, 10 feet? So I'm thinking kick 2 of them off the list to see what they come back with in terms of refurbish it at blah, 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 take it down at blah, 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 or hey, this is really good, hang on to it, blah, blah, blah. So.
For me, a pilot is not as appealing. And that I'm hoping out of this is like, given the fact you have 15 buildings and you have this need of a town, here's the 12 that are probably best used for the town.
Yeah.
I think that's hard to do in a pilot. It might be good for those two, and it might be good just to generally do it.
Yeah.
But at the end, I'm expecting something that's like, of the buildings you have, here's the best ones. In some respects, here are the ones that have the most commercial values. You get some money for it from the town.
Right.
Even if you could use it for something, maybe we have a less utilized building that couldn't go somewhere, so we could sell something for something more.
And that's what I'm wondering in the pilot, because there was a file that they said that they included, Kristen, that I couldn't find it and Fred couldn't find it.
Because I
It was,
realized it wasn't actually there. They sent me one hard copy, so that's my
Okay.
mistake. And I did look through it. It actually looked quite good. So that would actually bump our score up to 19 if I
yes.
gave it
So
20.
probably that would have answered some of the questions that I
Yeah.
have, that Scott, I wonder if that answers some of your
pass that
questions
down
to
to
say,
Peg. You can
here's
take that
what
with you.
we've done, you know,
Right.
to
Chris.
to look at that. And that, again, that was my concern, that they're used to like major cities with like hundreds of buildings.
Right.
And you have teeny tiny Berlin with like less than
Well-
20 buildings.
Well,
They
they
saw
did do
the
Clinton.
they saw the RFP.
Yeah, they did do Clinton.
Yep.
So that's
That was like the closest one.
and they did Dennis and Webster, and neither one of those are super
Yeah.
huge. So
In
yeah, you can take
Google
that with
Drive?
you if you
Okay.
want. Just bring it back. Thanks.
Okay.
That's the only one I have.
I am fine to make a motion to award them the facilities assessment, and we'll leave it up to you folks. You know, if a
Yep.
pilot is great. I wouldn't stand in the way of it. I don't think it does us any harm, so.
I would also like it if, so one of the things I've been thinking about is there's a lot, if you read through this, there's a lot of data collecting,
Yeah.
building visiting, energy information that needs to be collected, and people that have familiarity with capital. So I kind of came up with a list of folks who I think could be on our team to kind of help us out with this. Obviously Fred. I was thinking either the fire chief or John Polino. I would like to be involved. That's probably a good idea. I was thinking someone from Capital, and Janet Lamy actually had approached me that she had interest in this, and I thought that aligned well. And then Amy Grenier is actually on the Energy Committee and also the town accountant. So as part of volunteering for the Energy Committee, she would have access to the bills. So I said, I'm not voluntolding you. I'm going to ask Tim Wysocki though and see if you might be able to do it. And then I think it would be great to keep Peg involved as well. So
Yeah, I just didn't want all the work to dump on Fred, because he and I saw that about like gathering of reports, and I'm like,
yeah. I
Nope.
think we need a
Yeah.
team because there's a
Yeah.
lot of information and they need people to take them through the buildings and.
Right, and I think some of the taking of the buildings to be done by some volunteers. I think there's some admin staff that can pull together
Yep.
some
Yep.
reports. I think a committee to advise them, prioritize,
Mhm.
let them know I think that's a great committee for that, but I think the work could be spread even by a bigger group.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely. There'll be more than that. This was more just, like, I was
can pass
thinking
that
like
back.
the buildings,
Yep.
like that would
Yeah.
be something you and Janet would be great at to help.
Well,
with
and the
the
nice thing too
buildings.
is that you're not traveling 80,000 miles around town. These
Right.
buildings are truly
They're
within
all right
probably
here.
like a 2 or 3 mile radius, so
Right.
you divide and conquer, you could probably get them done in a couple days.
Yep.
You know, we
And
just
I-
need access and keys and blah, blah. blah.
Right, and for some of it too, once they've gotten, Fred's going to be involved in a lot, but I want to be able to, I think John Polino has a really good understanding of a lot of buildings in town too, so I'm going to try to steal his knowledge as well.
Or maybe Mr. Hanks, or one of the
yeah.
backup building inspector people that are Berlin
Sure.
people might know.
Yep. So anyhow, that's just kind of my thoughts on that.
Okay, did we?
I made the motion, I don't know if we got a formal second, but.
It got a second.
Yeah.
Okay, then. All right, then, all in favor, say aye.
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 So on the
Very
Boston
good.
Cane, do we want to postpone to next week, or do we want to go? I mean, I know it's late, it's something that we can wait until.
I would love us just to have like more energy, be more ceremonious about it than
Okay.
just,
Bleh.
yeah.
Okay.
I have it
We
down.
could, you know, we could,
Hey,
maybe
look,
we
and I
could put it
found
on
it.
an agenda.
Yes, could you put this on the, not this, but there's the thing for the, if you want to zoom in on it.
What is this?
Town takeover.
The
Oh,
town
town
takeover
takeover.
with the QR code and that. But yeah, maybe our next agenda, if you could do a formal Boston Cane award, and then we can get the pin and get the,
Got that in your notes?
Formal
Alright.
award.
Right.
Okay.
get the award, get the.
So like we should invite, like,
Well, maybe, do we need to
Or do-
decide first?
yeah, that's what I'm
We need to
wondering.
decide first.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's
Who's gonna get
decide
it.
first, and then we'll pick
But I think
it.
it's also a chance that more on the record of like where it came from and why
Yes.
it's done, and some of the other pieces that
Yep.
I think I know
Right.
pieces of, but I don't know all of it. and
Right.
I want to do it a little.
And there's the,
justice.
there's the cane. There's
There's
the
the
original
actual cane,
cane,
yep.
the actual cane.
that you don't want to give out.
That we don't give out. There's little pins,
Nice.
That look
for
like
them.
it. Yep,
Yep.
all right. Okay, anything else? Questions on the agendas? About that just now.
So I have the update, the housing committee met again last week. A couple of good things. We had a presentation from the Central Mass Habitat for Humanity, who's, I'm sure that's not their formal name, but they're the person, they are an incredible organization, doing some great stuff. They have not ever done a project in the town of Berlin, even though they've done it in almost all the other towns they cover. And so one of us, and it might even have been me, who was supposed to write an email to the assessor's office about getting a list of tax titles to see if there's a property that might work for that. They do 24 home repairs a year in their district. And I'm thinking at some point we might want to do a little PR for that, because it doesn't take any money we have. They raise the money for it. The idea is to preserve, for someone lower income, get some repairs done that allows you to stay in the home longer. And I bet we have no shortage of people who would qualify for that. And so it was just a great meeting. The other thing that happened is that the Central
Mass
Regional Planning Commission did hire a housing coordinator who actually started like last week. Her first kickoff was a meeting that I attended where the town sort of just asked what some of their priorities are for her town, and we're like, we want you to go to all the other towns and then tell us what they're doing, and from the best of those, let us do
Report
that.
back.
I did let her know that unlike some of the other towns, there's a lot of political will in this town, I think, to both preserve the housing stock and provide some other stuff. We also have some money in pools that could be used for this as well. And so I think we're going to try to get her to come to the next meeting, and if I remembered her name, I would say it on the agenda, and I apologize for not remembering what her name was.
CMRPC person?
Yeah, so CMRPC, we got a grant.
Janet, Trish?
No, this is a new, she just started.
Oh, a new one,
Yeah,
okay.
they just hired someone
All
new
right.
that's gonna help a whole bunch of towns out. And it's neat, because there's like 12 to 15 towns of this, and I've attended several meetings where there's like 4 or 5 of us who are at the meeting, and so I'm chatting with the planning commissioner for Grafton and some of these other towns that just, they have 2 full-time people where we have a handful of volunteers, but it's nice.
I just forwarded you that list of town parcels, because
Okay.
ironically, someone asked me for it recently, so I happen to have it, so it's on its way to you.
Good.
So September 5th is the energy meeting, so I don't know if you want to get to Tim to put something on the docket for Amy.
Yes, I'm gonna email him.
That's next Tuesday, so. All right. And then Rec had a couple pickleball lessons, absolutely thrilled. It went extremely well. I know that they're looking at putting some tournaments together, which would be kind of fun to go down and play. And then again, a shout out to Link. They had a great turnout for a reading event a couple
that's
Fridays
right.
ago.
Yep.
There were a whole host of us reading, so it was just nice to see all the families and see all the little kids. There was one gal, we stopped, young adult, I'll call her, we stopped counting at 80 books that she has read. Oh, yeah.
This summer?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
It
yeah.
wasn't my granddaughter, so was it?
Yep.
Maybe you
nope.
should honor her at the town
Yep.
takeover.
Nope.
I
Nope.
wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, we all sat there counting out the little tickets for her to put in the raffle and help her write her name so she could go around in them. So,
Her.
yeah, yeah, it was really well. It was a wonderful program by Link and the school to do that. So, and Tony Alessi was there for fire, even though we were outside. The storm had passed, so we were able to do it outside if we needed to go into the building. Fire was there to make us safe.
Good.
Okay.
I attended by Zoom the school committee meeting. I don't know that I really want to go into it because it got a little frustrating at one point and it just kind of logged out. But they were talking about the details at BMS and wondering why the town wasn't going to pay for it.
We don't own the school.
And HVAC conversation and new roof conversation came out to a comment from the chair suggesting two new elementary schools. So that's about when I logged off.
Wow.
So, all right, then if we have no other additional things to talk about, then I think we're good and we can have a motion to adjourn.
I move adjourned.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.